What's up, guys? It is Modern Craftsman Monday, and if you guys know John Marley, you know he works for Spire Builders. Well, this week we have Pete, the owner of Spire Builders.
Don't call him the owner, though. He doesn't like to be called the owner.
Not
boss. Yeah, not boss.
Boss.
Not a big fan of being called boss either. But John talked him into being on the podcast, and of course we talk about his past and how he got how he started Spire Builders. But was interesting because he went through a pretty significant lull in work where he had everything dried up. They ramped back up, and then we went down a rabbit hole of some really important topics, including mental health
and responsibility. He takes a huge amount of burden and responsibility for everybody in his company.
Very, very much so. It's evident that employees and culture and lifestyle and happiness is actually a word he uses a lot.
Yeah,
was at the top of his priority.
He was a great guest, guys. We didn't have to say much. He just kind of opened up and just ran with it. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was nice. He had a lot to share, which I think is going to be good because there will be a lot in there for everyone to relate to, especially, that it's not quite as pretty as it always seems.
All right, Pete. Well, appreciate you coming on to the podcast this evening.
Thanks for having me on.
I feel like he's a veteran. Like
Pete?
Founder, yeah.
Oh, right.
Compared to like a lot of guys we have on.
Well, it's funny because I feel like Marley has been the face of Spire for so long because we just known him so long, and he's obviously talked about Pete, but this is the first time we're seeing him here on this webcam.
He doesn't talk about me enough.
What should he be talking about?
No, I want him to keep doing what he's doing. So I'm completely happy with the way he approaches it, and he spends way too much time on Instagram for my liking. But he enjoys it, and I like for my guys to show off their work and be proud of what they do, and that's right up his alley. He's really proud of what he does, and that's great for Spire Builders as a whole. And those are the type of guys that we look for. So I'm not going to restrict any of those social media things.
Sure.
I just ask that he names Spire Builders and his posts, and other than that, no real restrictions.
Well, I think
just don't do anything stupid on social media.
I think he does a pretty good job documenting, but I think also, and obviously attributing Spire Builders, but I think, him as a human is a fantastic person, but he's also extremely knowledgeable and, shares it. And also I know he's using it to learn and to, we walked one of your projects, a year ago, 2 years ago?
I can't remember now. Yeah, maybe.
But it was like you could see that he was pulling inspiration from so many different people, and I think that's the biggest thing. He looks towards Instagram and social media. I feel like we're going down the let's defend John Marley.
I mean, the craziest thing to me is that
John's actually texting me right now. He's like, "Are you?" He's like, "Are you going live?" I'm like, "No."
It's funny that you think he's on social too much for an individual like that who is so dedicated to the job. Like, it's crazy that statement comes into play because I feel like he pours endless hours into the job. So
oh, he absolutely pours endless hours into the job, and it's purely and to be honest, I really don't know how much time he spends posting and editing and or whatever else goes into his posts. I mean, realistically, I'm not. There's no restriction, and I do, if you talk to any of the guys that work here, one of my big things is, I want these guys to work hard, but I don't want them on job sites for 10 or 12 hours a day. I don't want them on the sites on the weekend because, at the end of the day, I mean, happiness is the biggest key here. And if somebody's constantly working and putting in these hours, they're going to get burned out eventually. I mean, that's kind of the evolution of myself, growing this company is, 2 years ago, I think I was in here almost every Sunday for 4 to 6 hours on top of the 12-hour days during the week. And my partner, Steve, was in here also. And after about 3 months, it was just, we just said, enough's enough. I mean, if you don't kind of deal with that work-life balance, you will get burnt out. And so that's all, I always tell Marley, and any of our other guys, yeah, it's great that you're putting in the hours and you're working and doing what you need to, but make sure you're also working smart.
Yeah.
Instead of just hard, because sometimes, those two, they don't really interplay. And yeah, if Instagram's an hour out of his day, so be it. I mean, I'm not gonna, if he was only working 8 hours a day, then I'd probably pull him aside, but
Sure.
he's not, so no concern there.
No, I think that's important to note is that, the solid 8 hours or the solid, like you said, not 10 to 12 hours a day, because you as an owner, you did that and you saw the effect it had on your life, and to be able to kind of communicate that to your team and all your guys, a lot, where the other side would be you would scale back the amount of time you put and then put more, weight on these guys' shoulders and say, hey, you got to work 6 days a week in 12-hour days. But you're taking that and kind of passing it down throughout your company, which is, I mean, super important for culture.
So what impacted you personally to influence everyone else? Because a lot of times what Nick's saying, guys don't really get it. Why to pull away,
right,
and not be there 24 hours a day, whatever it is, 7 days a week. What's the impact you personally that makes you want to filter that down to you guys?
Well, I think it relates back to the culture and the growing of the company. I mean, I think you guys, you guys know construction. I mean, loyalty is something that doesn't seem to really be there anymore. So as I've, once I started this company, I mean, there were a couple things that, I said, I'm going to make sure that guys are compensated well. If it's been a good year, they're going to get a good bonus. It's not going to be $200. If I can give them $2,000 or $5,000, those are the things I'm going to make sure I pass through, because the reality is the last company I worked for was a great company, and they were built, their average house was $2 or $3 million builds. And I could have done that the rest of my life. I really enjoyed being a superintendent and focusing on one project at a time. So as the company's grown, the culture for me is the most important thing to keep these guys here, because guys can leave for money, for, a huge assortment of issues. But I think probably the biggest reason, people leave is they're just not happy with the way things are, or they're overworked, or they don't feel like they have support, or they don't have somebody to go to. So, I mean, those are some of the points that I've really been driving home, with these guys. And I think that's also, as we've grown, scaling up is, I try to keep paying attention to the hours put in and the stress levels that, these guys are dealing with, because, the higher those levels are, also the more, mistakes happen. And, we're a company that it's all about, the details and being the best of the best out there. So with that comes, the mental and physical health of our guys. I mean, we try to promote, working out and not smoking and, not too much drinking. And, we're going to implement some mental health things here in the next, 4 to 6 weeks, just to make sure we're dealing with any potential issues that we're unaware of that happen behind closed doors. So culture is the biggest key. And with that, there's a lot of things that come with that. And, probably the biggest thing is making sure people are relatively happy, and, I personally know John Marley's super happy because of everything we put him through. So
how can he not be happy? I feel like he has the life. He goes to work, he loves his job, then he's got like a bunch of property. He's not married, no kids. He rides dirt bikes and plays with tractors and stuff.
And his mini truck.
And mini truck.
Yeah, and mini truck. Well, I think it's all attributed to myself and Spire Builders,
It's got
especially because he didn't mention Spire Builders too much when you guys interviewed him. So I'm going to jab it on him a couple times during this interview. So but yeah, I mean, Marley's got a great life, and I tell him to keep enjoying it, and I think he's at an age that we constantly keep busting his chops. Every Friday we try to do lunches in our office, and we go around the room and say, what are you going to do this weekend? And anytime he says his girlfriend's coming down and all that, it's, when's the ring going on your finger? And, you have to get rid of your toys and, all this other stuff. So enjoy it while you can. But yeah, I mean, I think that was the main I think that was the main attraction for John to kind of, close up his company and come work for us, is we were able to start to provide him with some of the opportunities that he was slowly working into. But I think, we do have a really good back and forth learning process, and, we truly approach things as a team. I mean, I hate, what am I trying to say? I hate that I'm called an owner. I really hate when Marley calls me boss. I mean, that just drives me crazy, because, we're at the same level. I mean, he has a lot more experience in certain areas than I do, and vice versa. And that's kind of where we bring everybody here in and try to approach everything as a team approach.
What would you had mentioned the evolution of your business and not necessarily Spire, but how did you get into this? How you didn't just start Spire with no network, no contacts or anything like that. What was prior to Spire?
Well, so I'll go back to 6 years old. I mean, it started with Bob Vila in This Old House, and Sundays were, my This Old House, and, Norm with the Old Yankee Workshop and a few of those other shows. And I think that just parlayed into, I'm somewhat handy. I have dyslexia, so I think my logical mind works really well. So just being able to look at things and figure things out, I just started tinkering around my parents' house and fixing things. And, it probably actually really started with my father. I mean, they just didn't have the money to go out and buy something new. So he was constantly fixing anything around the house. And that just turned into kind of a love of, going around their house and fixing it up, because it needed a lot of work. And when I went off to college, the intention was to become an engineer, and I just hated a lot of the classes that I was taking. So my father actually bought a piece of ground up in Bar Harbor, Maine. And, I took a summer off and went up and we built a 20 by 30 log cabin. And that's kind of when I knew I really loved construction, but I also realized that I probably didn't want to keep a tool belt on my entire life. So fast forward, I graduated college. One of our neighbors said, hey, you should go look. I thought I was going to go work for like a Turner or somebody along the commercial lines, because that's kind of where I thought, the money was and the glitz and the glamour. And he said, you should go work for go interview with this company in Blue Bell, Pennsylvania called Parrick Homes. And I went on my spring break in my senior year, interviewed, got the job, and just started with them as an assistant super. And realized that educating myself, after hours on the weekend was my best way of, really getting up through the ranks. And after a couple of years, I bought a little fixer-upper and started doing a lot of the work myself. And so I then was with that company for almost 9 years. There was a short break I took. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I just want to interrupt for 1 second. You said spend your weekends and nights, furthering your education. So at that time, I don't know what year it is, but what was the avenue for furthering your education? Like, how were you doing that?
So that was starting in 99 is when I graduated college. And, I was an assistant super there. I was working for a couple well-seasoned superintendents that knew a lot about all the different trades out there. So electric, I knew a little bit about electric, but I never dabbled in it. So Home Depot, I won't say was relatively new, but they had a section with all these how-to books. So I went, my first book I bought, it was a Black & Decker Advanced Home Electrical book. I read the thing 3 times, front to back. Then I went and bought wires and I was just wiring outlets. And I would do that night, I would work at Parrick, I would go home, and then I would educate myself as much as I could, because I realized that the subs on the site, these were some of the best, because it was the high end of the market that we were working in multi-million-dollar houses. And I realized real quick that if I didn't know how to do these guys' job or understand how they do it, at least at their level, that respect would never come. But when you can show that you're just as good as some of these guys and, or understand how to, miter a joint, at that time might have been terrible at actually mitering a joint, but I knew how to do it. I knew the math calculations. I could figure it out. And I could show these guys that, you know, I had the intellectual background to basically, you know, basically push them and make them think. And so that was my drive, is just to educate myself about every single trade and be just as good as the guys out there. And that really helped, because when I could start helping these guys figure it out, or say, hey, you know, think about it, maybe if you do it this way, it's a little bit better. You know, it took a few years, but I mean, I think that caught on, and that's kind of really where, you know, that started, you know, with the love of being a superintendent and wanting to build one house at a time. But yeah, so 9 years later of doing that, you know, I obviously grew as a superintendent and got to, you know, I'll give John a props, maybe not the level John Marley is today. But yeah, at that time, that the company I was with decided to merge with a commercial company, and the way they viewed it is they could just go shake a tree and 10 superintendents would fall out of the tree, and they would hire a guy for 40 grand a year instead of 80 grand a year. Mm-hmm. And at that time, you know, I think I was lucky if I was making 72, which I was happy with. You know, after about a year of that mentality in the upper management, I could start to see all the problems that were happening, and the company was falling apart. And I went to the owner, one of the owners, and said, you know, things aren't going well. Let me kind of help run this company and kind of rewrite the ship. And the one owner was completely open to it, but the other guy that was involved basically was like, no, you know, like, it is what it is. So I went to lunch with the guy that worked at Perrick with me, Steve Minton, who's now my partner, and said, hey, let's start a company together. And he was too much of a chicken shit to take that plunge with me. Sorry. I know Marley told me not to curse.
That's
so
okay.
I'm trying not to curse. So, you know, realistically, just financially, he wasn't in a comfortable position. And I just said, you know what? At that time, I wasn't married, no kids. And I just said, let me try this. It's going to take a long time. And so, yeah, the hardest part about, I had the contacts with the architects, and I had a bunch of really good homeowners that really liked me and were backing me. But the reality of the situation was, even with the architects, is once it wasn't Pete Jonak at Perrick anymore. It was Pete Jonak at Spire, and they didn't know anything about Spire. So in some of these architects' minds, it's, this guy can build a house all day long, but can now he run a business,
right,
control the finances, and still build a house all day long? So there was, you know, I mean, the reality is it's been a good 6 to 8 year battle uphill to prove ourselves as a company, to grow that network. And now it's, as we're growing, it's my job to prove that the superintendents that are in place are good enough, because the company, you know, we've been financially sound. We've never been sued. Well, that's not true. We got into a lawsuit with one of our old insurance carriers, which, you know, they basically looked at us as a little guy and said, you know, we're going to sue you because you owe us a premium. And we said, you know, you guys were unfair and told us the wrong numbers. So we countersued and we won. So technically we've been sued once, but we won. But, you know, that evolution, that's a very hard thing. And I think I'll use John again. He had a good name for himself, and he was starting to grow that market. It's just, it's hard for these guys to trust, you know, for them to give you drawings for a house that could be valued at $2 or $3 or $4 million. It's right. Just, that takes time. It took time for me to grow the company name and the ability for us to compete against some of who are our competitors now, because, you know, a lot of my, you know, my 4 major competitors in the market that I consider a competitor are either second generation or have been in business for 30 plus years.
Right.
So, and we're coming up on our 12th year, and I'm also a little bit younger. So I also had a little bit of that youth discrimination when I was meeting potential clients, or at least that's the way I viewed it.
In the first couple of years of starting your business, what was your tactic? Was it to take on any project to to kind of grow yourself, or were you really trying to prove to yourself that give me a shot, I will make this happen with the architects?
So yeah, I mean, I knew at that point that I could have taken a lot of jobs that just weren't my niche and what I wasn't shooting. So I was a little bit fortunate and lucky that my first job was a 3,600 square foot house that was owned by an interior designer that I had worked with, and I had a pretty good relation, and I had to put together actually a lump sum number, which we're a cost plus open book company. We don't do lump sum. We don't do GMPs or anything like that now. But my first job, I did lump sum, and that project went well. And I was fortunate because that job took about 10 months to complete. The last house I had finished building with Parrick Homes was this couple that, I went to them and said, hey, I gave my 4-month notice to leave because I want to finish your house because it's the right thing to do. Well, that paid off because her sister had lived in Maryland and had decided to move up to the area and wanted to build an 11,000 square foot house. So I got lucky there. And then the third house was actually a bid against my old company, Parrick, and one other builder at that time. And I actually ended up having the highest price for highest budget. But that owner was a commercial developer, and he actually took the time to say, hey, let's sit down and tell me why you're higher. And, it boiled down to the allowances that we were putting in. I was a lot more honest, and I'll use, decorative light fixtures, which we don't buy, and they typically come through the interior designer. I think for this house, I want to say I had a $60,000 allowance, and the other two guys, one I think had a $21,000 allowance, and the other guy had $12,000 allowance. And I had said to the home, he was like, "Wow, why such a big difference?" And I had counted up. Luckily, I'd counted up all the light fixtures that had to be bought. I think it was somewhere in the 320 count range. And I said to him, well, put an average cost per light, and let's multiply it by 325. And I think he came to like 52,000, 55,000. So by being honest and kind of sticking to my morals, that kind of landed me that job, and then opened up the door for Steve Minton to kind of give his resignation at Parrick and, come work for me, because I viewed it as, with Steve and I, we're two very different people. I'm the field guy. I'm the problem solver. I'm the structural guy. Good with site work. Steve he loves sitting behind a computer. He loves Excel. He's super anal, and he's really good with tracking numbers and really taking our subs and making sure that there's details and there's scopes of work and contracts. So we always have something to go back to. So when Steve and I kind of finally got together, that's kind of when things, we hit a bump in the road in 2011 where we didn't have anything for about 6 months, which was pretty difficult. But then we landed a pretty big house, and we kind of really haven't looked back since.
Well, talk about 2011. So what do you mean you didn't have anything going on? Like everything's dried up, or? Yeah.
So basically I started in the beginning of 2008, January 2008, that 3,800 square foot house took me to early 2009, actually end of 2008. And the clients that had moved up from Maryland, their house started in the spring of 2009. That was almost a 13-month build. And then this other house in Fort Washington started end of 2009. That was a 13 to 14-month build. So we had finished that house end of 2000. Punch list took us into early 2011. And we hadn't, there was very few things to bid at that point. So I actually had to lay Steve off, which was terrible because, he had been working for me for about a year at that point. I think he just had his first kid. So it was hard. And that's the first. So I actually, I went and bought a spec, a really rundown house kind of on the other side of my neighborhood. And I went and did all the work and basically flipped it. And he went to Home Depot parking lots and said, "Hey, I'll build you a free website if you pay me $5 a call." And that's what he did. And he still kind of runs that little business. So we kind of survived together because he didn't want to go get another job because he knew, he really liked the setup, that we had created. It was just finding the work. And then we finally landed something end of the summer 2011, and we started construction in the fall. So yeah, we had 6-8 months. I think that year I lost almost 70 grand. So that was the first big hit and the first anxiety of debt.
So
was it just you and Steve at that point?
It was just Steve and I. I was working out of my house up to that point. We actually had a construction trailer on, I guess we had a construction trailer on the 2 jobs we were doing in 2010 and then 2011. When that project started, we put a construction trailer there, and we were both working out of that. And that's kind of how the next 2 years went. We just worked out of construction trailers, or he worked out of his house. And then I took the plunge, I guess it was 14, where I decided to rent an 1,200 square foot office space and move out of my house. And it slowly started to grow where we needed a bookkeeper, and we had a full-time laborer. And at that time, I think end of 12, we hired a superintendent that, we ended up later firing, and John joined us 13, or it might have been 14 actually, beginning of 14, end of 13, beginning of 14.
So when it was just you and Steve, you guys were doing one house at a time, and that was kind of.
Well, we were actually doing it. At the end of 11, we were doing one house. In 10, we were doing 2 at a time. There were 2 pretty big houses. One was 11,000 square feet. Mm-hmm. The other was about 9. High dollar, high-end finishes. So, yeah, I was the superintendent, and Steve was the, buying contracts and putting together scopes of works and, putting together the monthly draws. He's the numbers guy. Mm-hmm. And, that's how it was for a couple of years, just him and I.
So when things were going well, and then all of a sudden it just kind of collapsed for you a little bit, I feel like that's everyone's worst fear, for work to dry up. And I think that everyone has the anxiety about that. But I guess a little bit of a harder question leading into that, where you left your job where you're making X amount and then you landed a few good jobs. Did you have like proper planning and saving and systems in place to kind of ride that year out? Or were you just like, hey, we're making money, we're getting jobs, this is just always how it's going to be? Or were you kind of more conservative, looking at this like, hey, we're still in the infancy of our business, let's save? What did that look like for you?
So I'll jump back before the company started. So at Parrot, I had alluded, I was not only educating myself at night, but I bought my first fixer-upper. Actually, I settled on that house on September 14, 2001. So, right, that was right after, September 11, 2001. So right after the attacks. But I bought that first house, and I moved back in with my parents' house. I was living with a buddy of mine, moved in with my parents, and now my nights and weekends were, I gutted the house, I did all the electric, I did the flooring, I did the tile work, I hung the drywall, I paid for somebody to finish it. I did pay an electrician to run the service. The HVAC guy told me what size ducts to run and where, so I ran the duct work, and then he hooked it up, and then I painted it. So I did all that in the course of the year, and I sold that house. I made a little bit of money there. I did it again on a little bit bigger of a project. So I always saved that money and never spent it. All my friends were going to bars on Thursday and Friday and Saturday nights, and they were lucky, or I guess I was lucky if I saw them once every other week on a Saturday night, because I saved my money and I just kept working. So I was smart. I guess I used all that money and put it aside. So I basically, when I started Spire Builders, I could continue the life I was living at that point. And I had about 15 months in cash reserves. saved up that if I didn't land any work or no money was coming in, I could survive for 12 to 14 months without having to really worry about it. So I stayed very conservative on the front end and I didn't buy toys. I didn't have any mini trucks or dirt bikes or anything like that.
Wow.
I think, a lot of
shots
people
fired.
No, I feel like a lot of people go off on their own and you start making money and you see jobs coming in and then all of a sudden it can turn very quickly. And if you aren't saving properly, if you're not structured correctly, it's probably a reason why most people go out of business.
Well, I think it's the number one reason people go out of business. It's cash flow. And it's because they either don't have a line of credit or a reserve in place, or they are not billing correctly or quick enough. And, at a certain point, if you're not paying your subs or suppliers, you're going to get cut off. And I always knew the ship could go down. It takes a really long time to kind of build that snowball, as I put it. But it takes no time to destroy that snowball, especially if you don't have cash.
So when you guys re-upped and you guys are getting busy, you brought in a super, you had a full-time laborer. What was where was the deciding point where you guys decided to, start hiring more people?
And not stay small.
Right, not stay small after going through something so, that caused so much anxiety.
You had to move out of mom and dad's place at some point.
I did. I moved out after that first year. So what was the deciding factor? I mean, I think there were multiple factors. I think the reality is it was just I knew enough people that basically said, hey, if you get enough work, I'd like to come work for you. So my first, call it 6 hires, I kind of knew who I wanted to bring on. So if I landed work where I needed that person, that's when I would hire. Mm-hmm. Because I always knew, that first job that I did as Spire Builders, I actually got married the year before, and my wife was a teacher, so she could only take vacations in the summer. So I was halfway through building my first house, and we decided to go on our honeymoon to the Bahamas. And I was spending 3-4 hours a day running the job and dealing with phone calls and all that. I think I had a $1,200 cell phone bill after 6 days of being in the Bahamas. So part of me knew that if I'm ever
Can I just laugh at that
to
tough life? Okay.
I knew that there would need to be a team of people basically for me to be able to go and enjoy a vacation. So that's kind of been the biggest driver of wanting to grow the company. And I think just having good people around, it feels really good when we're in a room together and we're all sharing ideas, and it just, you walk out of those meetings and you just kind of feel reinvigorated and go, this is why I love construction, because, we're coming up with new ideas, or we're going to implement a new spec, or we're going to do this really cool detail that, maybe we've seen it, 2 or 3 times, or it's been done 2 or 3 different ways, and we kind of design it to what we want. I always tell John, stop sharing too many secrets. I mean, 8 to 10 years ago, we were putting return air grills and routing them into baseboards, and we were hiding them in the toe kicks of kitchen cabinets. And, we were putting return grills on top of millwork, or holding crown molding down an inch and using that as a return. And at that point, I had never seen anybody else do that. But to myself, the details, like, I'm super anal, the details matter. I don't walk into a house that, is a $1 million+ home, and you walk into the dining room and you have this gigantic return air grill sitting in the middle of one of the walls, just because it was easy for the HVAC guy to do that. And, it takes a little bit of education and thought to kind of re-educate that HVAC guy and to go, HVAC is the most important thing in the house, but, I don't want it to be that, I won't curse. I don't want it to be that ugly blemish on a wall. So, I think working together as a team as it's grown, we do have some really good guys here, some of the best. And that has been a hard thing, because it's not like, we had all this money and I could just go, oh, you want $100,000? Sure, come work for us. Mm-hmm. It was finding a John Marley and, talking to him for a couple years and going, hey, if we do this. And John, he took a pay cut to come work for us. But I think he understood the future, and he understood that I'm in this to have fun and just, build a reputation and try to build some of the coolest stuff out there. And I'm willing to do it, together as a team effort. And with that, it's, I make sure when we have good years, these guys have good bonuses. And, right now I'm in the process, I'm the 100% owner of Spire Builders. I'm in the process of figuring out how I sell this company to these employees in the future. I mean, I called it Spire Builders for a reason, because 12 years ago, I didn't want to call it Jonak Builders, because my intention was always to kind of bring the people in that actually make the company and let them be a part of it if they choose to.
Going back, you mentioned something earlier about the first job you did was lump sum, but now you guys are cost plus. How long did you guys, was that second job you went right to cost plus model?
Yes.
And what was, I think I'm going to take a guess here that the reason you did lump sum on the first project was because it was your first project and that's what they had asked for?
Because they already had 2 other bids from 2 other contractors that did lump sum. They had a bank to do their loan, and that's basically what I was forced into. But I was given the time to get actually sub bids. The drawings were actually pretty decent. The spec was pretty decent. So I had a comfort level there.
Sure. Because we get that question a lot about, GMP and lump sum and cost plus. Obviously the downside of cost plus is the amount of work it takes to track everything. But the upside is the transparency. What was your reasoning for going that route? And
because it's the most honest way. And I think, we've lost a couple jobs where our budget out of the gate, we'll get a phone call. Well, you're $150,000 higher than this guy. How is that? And, a lot of times we'll say, sit with us for a couple hours. Because when we put together our estimates on the front end, Steve has taken all the historic, the past, and broken it down into square foot and lineal foot numbers. So we were fortunate enough that Peric let us take those contracts, where when we had actually built the house, we had taken the plumber's contract from that house and went, okay, the plumber's contract for this house was $50,000. It was a 10,000 square foot house. So Steve he broke it down in what's the plumbing cost per square foot, or he would break it down what does the plumbing cost per bathroom. Mm-hmm. So we take those numbers to develop a good budget, and basically it is what it is. And then if the client decides to move forward, we'll then go and get 3 competitive bids per trade to figure out what the market value is of that trade for that house. And that's a difficult thing to sell. But after the 3rd month, when the client really sees that you're there for the client and not yourself, and you're not looking to cut corners to make a little bit more profit, then they understand what the management fee is being used for and what they pay. So once you do a few of those, it's really not that hard to sell that to these clients. And if it is hard, it's probably a client we don't want.
Is there a commitment or a retainer or anything for that, that initial budget?
So up until 2 years ago, no. We just did that out of the goodness of our heart, because we were working our butts off to grow the reputation. But now that things are so busy, we just felt there were so many people testing the water. So, and we had felt that we had kind of built our reputation up, where these architects that have great names and have been in business 20 plus years longer, once we've done one project, they see that we actually could do things completely different than any of the other builders. So we kind of viewed it as, listen, we're going to put a $15,000 retainer for us to put together a budget for you. And if you choose to go with us, we're going to credit that back towards your management fee. So it's a no-lose situation. Yep. But the reality is on the higher end of the market, the niche that we go for, because we focus on $300 a square foot and go up from there. So in this market, if there's a bid list, if there's a bidder, we've started to decline bidding against other builders because none of these projects have drawings that are far enough along with the details that we need. And especially the specs that we need, because I mean, you can take an HVAC system, you can take a 5-ton unit, and is it 13 SEER? Is it 18 SEER? Is it a 5-stage compressor? Is it a variable speed? Is it, 4-inch media filters? Is the guy putting return air ducts in every bedroom so doors can be closed? It's all those details. There's not enough time to have those meetings and conversations to put together a real number. Most of the clients just want to know, give me something where I'm like plus or minus 5%. Mm-hmm. And then, oh, by the way, when we started, let's track it and see where we're at. And show me what savings are being produced or where we're over so I can adjust my thinking of any future decisions.
I feel like plus or minus 5% on a big job's pretty good. I'd be happy with that.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we promote because we now have a track record that we can prove that.
So I feel not that, like, even on the scale of work that I do, a lot of times that conversation with the customer, if they are bidding it, even on a smaller remodel, there's so many tiny little things that go into it. And if there's no drawings and there's no design and there's no specs on anything, it's so hard if somebody's bidding to basically go through everything, even have the conversation with that customer, that homeowner, to basically explain everything that you're putting into that job that somebody may or may not. And I think that that's where it is helpful to have these customers who come to you, who see your track record, who can kind of sign up for something in advance and get them what they want within the budget that they're comfortable spending. Because I think that a lot of times when you start bidding out stuff like that, it doesn't matter even, you'd have to have an absolutely complete set of drawings with a complete set of specs in order for that to be apples to apples. And a lot of times it's still not apples to apples at that point, depending on how you guys do something versus how somebody else does something.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. I mean, I think we dig our heels in because we, 3 years ago, we started another company so we could handle, some of these other, what we call projects that could be a $25,000 to whatever, up to $1 million job. But yeah, sometimes they have no drawings or, they'll send us 10 pictures from their house account and say, I want that. And it's a lot of times we just won't put a budget together and we just say, tell us what your budget is. Mm-hmm. And call these 5 references and we're going to design and we'll work towards designing to get to that budget. So we're not, because you guys all know, everybody comes to you with a pipe dream and drawings or ideas that are way more than they want to spend. Right. Even on the high end of the market, that happens all the time. So we've gotten pretty good at just saying, what's your budget? Since we're open book cost plus, we show you all the invoices. It is what it is. We have to get them to trust us that we are truly behind them. And that's worked where we get them to call our, previous clients. And we make our entire client list available. We don't just pick the best 10 because that's kind of the mentality is, we're going to give you everybody so you can pick and choose as you want. And we're not hiding anybody. And that's worked pretty well. But you're right. If you don't have drawings or specs, it's really your choice and your decision of what you're going to do and how you're going to approach it. But at the end of the day, that still relates back to what's the budget in their head.
Sure. What was the purpose of starting this new branch? Or is it a completely separate company or is it just like a division of Spire Builders?
So it's a completely separate company where actually at this time I was able, and I felt, because I felt that Steve, really should have been a 50-50 partner in builders. So basically this company was started because clients, I had built a pretty big house back in my Parrot days that now is 18 years old. And that homeowner says, listen, please maintain my house. Please fix this. Please adjust the doors. I need to redo some trim. I got to repaint the outside. And for 3 years, he said, please do this for me. I will pay you. And finally, 3 years ago, Steve and I, we went in as 50-50 partners and started Spire Property Management, where we basically offer maintenance of the homes that we've built. And out of that came, hey, by the way, will you finish my basement now?
Right.
Or, by the way, can you, I don't know, build me a pool house? And all these little projects that, we call projects. We have now kind of a Spire Builders approach on the project end. But now we have a maintenance division where we're walking through these people's houses every 6 months and we're putting together, kind of a to-do list of here's what needs to get done right away. Here's what we're watching. Or just send us a honey-do list. What do you want us to do? And we're going to send in-house handyman, carpenters to your house and get it done. And we're going to charge you on an hourly rate. And if it's HVAC or plumbing or electric, we're going to bring in one of our subs that we have been working with and that we know charges a fair T&M rate. And we just bill the clients every 30 days. And it's been a tough uphill battle on growing that company because we've already fired 2 what we call maintenance directors. And now we, hopefully he's not listening to this, but now we have the right guy running that. So, we've started to expand that piece because with the maintenance comes these additional projects. And now we've just opened up the door where, if we're maintaining and taking care of homes on the high end of the market, I'm not stuck dealing with 10 really good architects now. My potential pool of houses that I can go to are in the thousands because, we're fortunate that the area that we live in has a extremely high net worth value because we're right outside of Philadelphia.
So the company, I feel like most people when they start, they look to get bigger projects, higher dollar projects to kind of keep the cash flow coming for longer. So you've developed this company that's on jobs for 10 months, sometimes higher than that. And now you're starting this new company where you're kind of turning over the jobs a lot quicker and you have more a volume of customers and you're doing these smaller jobs. You may not be as heavily involved with that, but what are the major differences between running a company where you have a ton of tiny projects and maintenance and something where you're dealing with 1, 2, 3 customers a year?
There's a huge difference between the two, but I think on the builders end that, we have 6 projects going this year. First, the property has been a big marketing tool where we're meeting with these potential clients. But the headaches are drastically more on the property side because you're dealing with a lot of smaller projects. But one of the main drivers for me to grow that business is we all know that the economy goes up and down. So we might not have 6 houses in, whatever, hopefully not for quite a long time. But if that starts to slow down, I can shift a John Marley or somebody else and maybe have them go do 2 or 3 smaller projects. And, my goal, and the whole company culture thing pulls back into this, and the loyalty is I'd like to be able to be one of those companies that doesn't lay off any of their guys when it gets slow, just so I can keep my paycheck or my draws close to, what they are typically. I definitely have I would want to make that investment because if I lose good guys, to get them back or even to find them a year or 2 later, it's a nightmare. So, and if I can, my pool on the builders end, I'd be lucky if I get to, I shouldn't say lucky, I'm very fortunate, but we maybe get a look at 20 projects a year. On the property side, my client list from the Parrot days and now is almost 100 long. We've gone out to the first 18. They've all said yes. So I have, another, 82 potential clients to go out to. And then I can call my architects and say, hey, who are your top 10 clients that a competitor of mine built their house, and send them a brochure and say, I know these guys don't want to do maintenance because it's a pain in the butt, and, we're willing to do it. And who knows what the hit rate will be on that.
What's the initial conversation with, or how is that set up? Is there, beyond time and material, is there a contract, like a blanket contract? Is there like a annual fee that they're paying, or is it just, a totally separate time and material company?
So it is time and material, and we've kind of we've changed it a few times, but we've pretty much nailed it down. Is there's now going to be an annual fee just to be part of this.
Yeah.
And that basically says you really want us to take care of your house and maintain it. And that also allows us to bring in overhead of what we're calling estate managers, where they're only going to be probably running 10 to 15 houses at a time. So that way, when client A calls up, their estate manager, that estate manager is going to know everything about their house, their, personality, kind of what they like and don't like. And it's like a concierge type of white glove service.
Sure.
So that yearly fee gets them in the door, gets them to inspections, and then everything else is billed on a time and material rate. So all our guys walk around with tablets. They clock in. There's a geo hit there of where they're at. When they clock out, geo hit also. So if a client goes, he wasn't here till 5 o'clock at night, we can bring up the map and say,
sure,
he clocked out at 5 o'clock on your property, and in his notes here, the 10 things he got accomplished. And we've had that happen one time, and as soon as they heard about the geo tracking behind the clocking in and out, it was, the bill was paid the next day.
But beyond that, am I assuming correctly that your markup or your fee, whatever you might call it, is probably higher on the maintenance side than it would be on a build side?
You're correct. It is. It's definitely higher on the build side, and it's
it's higher on the build side or maintenance side?
No, it's higher on the maintenance.
Oh,
and
yeah,
it's over 5. Yeah, it's a bigger spread, because the reality is the maintenance piece is not necessarily the moneymaker. It's what's keeping our name on the tip of these clients' tongues. What happens is all these clients at some point add in, a project. Be it a generator, be it reside the house, window replacement. I mean, they turn into a couple $100,000 jobs, which is that's kind of where we get the money to really, keep that company viable.
No, that makes sense.
It's pretty similar. I have a buddy who's a landscaper, and it's the same thing. He doesn't make money mowing lawns and doing like yard maintenance and stuff like that. But when they want to do a new paver patio or they want to do a backyard renovation, they don't call another landscaper to get in. Like, he's just always there doing that.
Yeah, same exact approach. It's, if there's a comfort level and they like you, they're never going to call anybody else, and chances are they're not even going to bid you out, because if they know you're honest and open, it is what it is kind of type of scenario. And why are they going to take their chance? Because they all have stories of nightmares of previous contractors or subs, or they have a friend that is going through a not so fun process because they chose the low bidder or some fly by night contractor.
You made
John, you wanted to implement something like that into your business at some point, didn't you?
We're gonna get there.
just listening, trying to get all the secrets.
No, it's all basic.
So you made a comment earlier about that you took or Peric let you take some of the contracts. So what was that relationship with Peric when you left? Was it kind of a mutual decision?
It was. So there were two owners, and I won't use the last names, but Rob was the original owner who had a great relationship. So when I brought this to him, he was on board. But there was another guy from the commercial side that had owned shares in this company, and he was kind of the new face because Rob had kind of taken a back seat because he had he owned a bunch of offices and apartment buildings, and he was enjoying life. And that partner basically said, yeah, maybe you can run the company, but you'll never own part of it. And, that's just not in the wheelhouse here. So I went back to Rob and just said, he basically shut me down, and I don't really see a future here. And, that's when I said, listen, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. And the next day I went in and told him that, I'm going to finish this house that I'm working on. So it's basically my 4-month notice to leave. And, it was a mutual breakup, and I didn't take any contracts. I didn't actively try to bid against Paracombs for that first year because I didn't want to create any wake. And at that time, I didn't know if I could be sued. I mean, I didn't have a non-compete or anything in place, but I just didn't want to ruffle any feathers and see what I could do on my own. And it was when Steve came on board that Rob had called me up, during this job, probably about 3 months after Steve came on board, and said, you know what, I screwed up 2 years ago. I should have really listened to you, and I'm closing my doors, and Paracombs isn't going to exist anymore. And if any leads come down to me, I'm going to push them off to you because, I guess just trying to do the right thing and not burn any bridges at the time, I guess just earned his, additional respect for him. So, we have a good friendship to this day. And, he's referred us some good clients. It turned out well. For a year and a half, we didn't really talk, and I didn't really dabble in their world to this client, put me into the bid. And the architect didn't it was a friend of a friend that knew me that I ended up bidding against Parrick and another builder in the area. So, it went as well as I guess it could have gone.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly more, I feel like, nightmare stories in that situation. You mentioned like the non-compete, or John, I think we had talked about it, like the non-compete you really can't, it doesn't really stand, right? Or
in Massachusetts it doesn't. The right to earn a decent wage for your family trumps it. So you can sign a non-compete anytime you want, but it doesn't stand up in court.
But it just makes it a messy situation.
They can sue you for whatever they want.
Right.
It doesn't. You don't even have to have a contract. So you played it right. Absolutely right. Is stay in. Don't make a wake. Do your own thing. Take that last job that they bid, shove it down their throat, and do the job, and put them out of business. I mean, that's what happened. It sounds like.
And I kind of agree with you. In Pennsylvania, I can sign a non-compete. I can prevent guys from talking to an architect for 2 years or talking to any of my clients. And I actually got into a situation a year ago. One of my supers left. He was a trim carpenter, and we were talking to a client, and basically the client didn't like our management fee, and this superintendent knew this family because he had worked for him, trimming, and he basically went in and said, "Oh, I can do what Spire can do, and I'm not going to charge you a management fee. Just give me a great salary." He was awarded the job, and I was pissed for, I don't know, probably a good week or two in stewing. And then I put together a non-compete for all my employees and basically sent it out and said, "You guys are signing this." And a week later, I just said, "What the hell am I doing? I mean, that's going to kill the morale here." So I just said, "You know what? Tear them all up." I mean, and I had some people sign it right away and give it to me, and I tore them all up because I just said that's a terrible way to treat these guys. That's not a team approach. And you know what? If somebody's not happy here, honestly, go out. I don't want to stop them from doing it. I don't want them to steal my clients, but honestly, if my clients go with them, then we're not doing a great job in the first place. So that's my own fault. So
it's like signing a prenup.
We don't have a non-compete, but I don't have a prenup either. So my wife does own half of everything. Probably more than half.
Is she still teaching?
So no. So after our first kid, she stopped teaching, and actually, so our youngest now is 6, and she was she was a teacher for special needs kids. So she's good at IEPs and all these other things. I'm not sure if you guys know what that means, but it's a specialized skill. And she was actually asked to take a full-time job about 6-8 months ago. And we had a lot of conversations, and I asked her not to take the job because life is chaotic and I work a lot of hours, and I really wanted her to take care of our kids and spend time with our kids and help them grow up. I mean, I'm dyslexic. My wife had some learning issues growing up, so our kids are already at a big disadvantage. So, we might be investing in tutors and things like that. But I felt that for the the mental health for both of us, it was best for her to stay home, and she agreed to it. And I put a 2-year time limit. So I think we're at a year. And we'll see, but she still doesn't work, but yeah, she could go back to teaching full time. Yeah. If she would like.
It's funny. I feel like it's almost it's funny to see the way that you handle your business and even your family and everything else. I feel like most people who own a business are most concerned with their bottom line and their salary and what they're taking away. And oftentimes I'm trying to sit here and figure out what's kind of spurring people to make the decisions they have. And multiple times you've said that it's for the team approach, and even building your company is so you can go on vacation and kind of put 100% towards your family.
And turn the phone off.
Yeah. So like, where do you see that kind of ending, or like, where do you kind of see yourself working towards to get there? And is that so that you can, like, is the sky the limit for you? Do you want to grow this company to be massive? Are you comfortable in the size that you are and just kind of refining these two sides of the company? Or where do you need to be to make that happen for you?
I mean, I think that's a hard question to ask, because I think if 4 years ago you would ask me this question, I would say I was fine where I was at, other than my phone would still ring. I mean, if we, unless we were getting on an airplane, getting out of the country where there wasn't cell service, I mean, my phone was always on. But that being said, Builders, between the two companies, we have 36 employees now, and that it almost breaks 50-50 in personnel down the line. But it's now set up where I've promoted John Marley, another guy, Mark Filio, and Matt Palmer up to what we're calling VP of Operations. So they're kind of taking over my role in helping to run now 6 superintendents, so we could do 6 projects at a time. So that way, for me, I'm dealing with 3 guys now and not 6. So, because as we grow, all our job roles have to evolve. I mean, I've heard numerous people say, my job now is to make sure all our team, our entire team has a job. And that's, I need to get out of the weeds of making sure, like, did this structural guy really design this steel correctly, which I spent a lot of time with John again on that job in Bluebell that you guys visited, just double checking that stuff. So, it's so to kind of answer your question, I think I could probably add one more VP of field ops to still feel part of every project. And then that way, I hope we get to the point where we can start really picking and choosing and just passing on jobs that were like, not cool enough, or not really up our alley, or the clients, might be a little unrealistic. Maybe get to pick and choose. But you know what? In a year, 2 years, 4, whatever it takes to get there, maybe I say, that's BS. Maybe I take Marley and Matt Palmer and Mark and then promote them up to now run 2 or 3 VPs themselves. And we just keep growing the chain, because I'm a huge believer in, promote from within. And especially if these guys took a risk coming to join Spire in the last, 8 years, I got to make sure I reward that with not only salary, but just responsibility, and ultimately then potentially ownership of the company. Spire Property Management, I've already stepped back, and Steve and I were both, 50-50 owners. 6 months ago, we put a guy, Alan Butler, and named him president. He's running that company now. Steve and I are just here as mentors for him. We let him make the decisions. We let him make money decisions. I mean, it's still this transition of, what's the best way to approach this, but I don't have that stress and anxiety anymore of helping to run that company like I had for the previous 2.5 years before we kind of named them president of the company, because now those clients, I mean, we have a $1 million job that he's running. I met the client and helped land the job. That's the last communication I've had with that client. Alan's taken it all now, which is amazing for me. But that company could grow to 100 employees easily. And it's just, it's once again putting the right people in position, the right people in place to grow it, because it once again, it boils all back to reputation. I mean, it takes a long time to build a good reputation, but if you screw it up, you could sink really fast. And
so, I think that obviously money and finances are a driving factor in anyone's business, but it doesn't come off as that being, while that may be one of your main priorities. I feel like Nick's very similar, where Nick's trying to build a company and he really enjoys watching other people flourish and other people grow.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that a lot of us in this aren't necessarily good businessmen, and while the money may be a motivator, there's other reasons why we do it. And it seems, and I could be wrong, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that you do, like, for you to grow your company, in turn, you'll make more money, but it also feels like there's other motivating factors for you.
Well, I can honestly tell you it's never been about the money for me. I mean, the reality is it's about happiness. I mean, that's truly what it's about. And I can honestly say, I think I was reinvigorated a little over a year ago, and I won't get too much into it, but one of my best friends took his own life. And I kind of use that to kind of relook at my life, and just, it's truly about happiness, because, and I also have I get to see some of these clients that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars, some of them. And a lot of them are, we've been fortunate. Almost every one of the Spire clients are wonderful people, and they're, I hang out with them and go out to dinners with them. But I saw it's, Peric, and I've heard other stories. I mean, money doesn't buy happiness, and there's a lot of miserable people out there. So money has never been the driving factor. Yes, it's definitely a number one priority to make sure I understand how P&Ls work, understanding what EBITDA is. And, I have to understand that business side to help drive some of my decisions. But for me, it's about client happiness, doing the right thing, building really nice houses, and just standing behind what we say. And the money just has come. Will that continue? I hope so. But, as I joke with these guys, I just want to be a superintendent again. I don't want to be the owner of a company. I don't want to be a boss, but I realize that's just the position I'm in. So once again, I kind of refocused a little, this is a little more than a year ago, but just said, okay, I could build a house, and I'm very well educated in all the subworld. What am I terrible at? Well, I'm a shitty business person. I don't have an MBA. When somebody would ask me about my P&L, I would be like, I don't know. I mean, I hired a controller 4 years ago, and she worries about that. She tells me if it looks good or not, and what's your payroll? I don't know. I don't want to look at it anymore because it gives me anxiety. So, I made the effort, and I joined Vistage, which is a peer-to-peer group, little less than a year ago, where, one of my clients was in it. There's an owner of a commercial firm that does, hundreds of $millions of work. And I just said, if I want to make myself a bit better business person, once again, I have to educate myself. I joined this group. It wasn't cheap to join, but I mean, it's been invaluable, and it's the best thing I've done in the past 8 months. And it's translated in the company's, extreme growth. I think we've hired 6 new people in the last 6 weeks. We've landed 3 jobs in the last 8 weeks with a total value of almost $10 million. And it's a lot of it kind of boils down to that learning process that happens in this group, because, I'm in a room once a month for 8 hours a day with, 16 other business owners, none of which are a residential builder because they don't allow competitors. But I get to hear about the real world problems and the real issues that these guys have gone through and gals. And, the learning there has just been tremendous. And that's been a huge help for me on the growth of the business and expanding. And it's, and it's, once again, it's finding, the really good guys that are going to help you want to grow, and they're going to learn, and they're going to educate themselves on their own time to make them more valuable to me. Because, I had a client tell me if their employee gives them energy, he needs them. If that employee is draining energy out of that, I don't need you. And that's when you need to get rid of that person. You need people stepping up. I mean, if I have an employee, answer me, I don't know. I mean, in the back of my head, I'm going, this is bullshit. I don't want to hear, I don't know. It's, you know what? I'm not sure. Let me go find out or figure that out for you, and I'll get back to you. That's the person I'm going to keep here for a career. So, that's what we're looking for. And when I hear that out of somebody, in my mind, it's, I'm going to do everything to keep you here. And I'm going to make sure you're not even talking to somebody. Or I know that if a competitor talks to you, you're going to go, no, I'm super happy at Spire. I'm not going anywhere. So, and that parlays back into the culture. I mean, we have a 401k plan we implemented a little over 2 years ago, and it's a 3%. I mean, so if you don't put anything, every year I put 3% of your salary into your 401k, because when you're 21, 25, you don't really think about it. I'm 43 now. I'm thinking about it a lot because I got 3 kids to worry about college-wise, and when do I want to retire? So we have that in place, and with millennials and all that, if you're a full-time employee, we have this blended life program. You basically there's no limit to PTO time. It's if you're doing your job, and if you want to go take a vacation, you figure out the coverage while you're away, and you figure out with somebody else here how things can get done. And I don't care if that's 1 week a year or if it's 5 or 6 weeks a year. If we're covered, I'm not going to restrict you. And we also, if people want to work from home, superintendents can't really do that. But if you have a sick kid or you want to leave at 3 o'clock, don't tell me. I don't care. If you're doing your job, that's all I care about.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like there's so many times in my day-to-day where it's like, even if there's an issue, I don't need you to place blame. I don't even need to know what the issue is. It's just come up with a resolution for it. If you want to come to me with some solutions to that, but like, I don't want you to pass the buck. I don't want you to pass blame. I don't want you to explain what your problems are. Just like, come to me with some sort of answer.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, come to me. You don't have to chew. It might be best if it just comes up, but come to me with the solution. And, these guys know I'm not going to scold them. I'm not a yeller or screamer. Like when we interview, I always tell these guys, if I walk into a site and hear that you're screaming at subs or whatever, you're off the job. But it's about approaching everything and trying to figure out the solution or what are the options, and let's work it out together. And if it's something that costs me $3,000, you know what? I'd rather pay the $3,000 and fix it than you not say anything. And then 6 months later, it's, now this thing has come and it's 5 times worse. And it's, what happened here? And, so keeping that open, honest, open communication between everybody is, what I strive for. Am I perfect at it? No, but, I try, and I think everybody feels like, we all make mistakes here. So as long as everybody's learning from it, that's what matters. And sometimes we take an issue that we've learned from, and we'll feed it to everybody to say, hey, here's what happened, and, here's what we need to do to try to prevent it. And that's kind of also, we've started putting together our own in-house spec books on, how we want things done. I mean, I'm sure you guys saw, Marley put together a whole spec book on how that range screen system be put together, the Newtown Square project. And maybe he didn't publish it because I would probably strangle him if he published it, but it was a step-by-step picture of here's how you install this range screen and flash around the windows and how the pole gutters go in. And it's super valuable. And he took pictures of it, and then he put text to it and put it together, and it's a PDF book, and we provided it to our guys bidding the job, and we're going to keep that as a spec
that out
book.
to everyone. We've all seen it.
All right. Well, why don't you text him right now? He just got fired.
I know it's getting late. I kind of want to switch gears on something that you had touched on earlier, which I think is super important and we don't talk about enough. But you said that you want to try and implement some sort of mental health, whether it's, just kind of shedding light on, or what do you want to kind of expand upon that some? I'd love to hear about that, because I think it's something that's super important that kind of always just gets swept under the rug.
Yeah, so I'll be completely honest, and I probably shouldn't, but everybody who really knows me is I'm an open book. So I'm a go. I used to drink a ton of caffeine, and, I was a smoker, and, it's when you're young, you have no issues. And I was even getting to the point where, what's that?
I said you're bulletproof.
Right, you think you're bulletproof. And basically, even with drinking, it's, I'll just have a drink, and, you get home, I'll have a drink here or there. And, I was proud of myself. 5 years ago, I would tell people I had a 2-drink maximum during the week to kind of calm down and resettle. And nobody really thinks about that. But as I've gotten older, I started to get some anxiety issues, and that's parlayed into, I realized that when I drink alcohol, my anxiety is worse the next day. I would get heart palpitations, and I would be a little jittery, and I wouldn't really pay attention, or I wouldn't be able to keep attention spans going. So I think, my wife's, and then with my buddy taking his own life, it wasn't a too pretty of how it all went down. But with that, my wife lost her mom when she was 11 years old to colon cancer. And at the time, her mom was going to a therapist. And my wife has continued to see that therapist since she's passed away. And I actually met her for the first time about 4 months before our wedding, because she was having a really tough time knowing that her mom was going to be at her wedding. But so, we would go after my buddy took his life. I spent the time going to therapy and talking through things, and I got into meditation. So now I meditate. Like, if you had asked me about meditation 2 years ago, I probably would have made a wise ass, crack comment about that's stupid. And, that's worthless. But in the last year, I've learned that, that slows my brain down. And that's the key, is if I can slow my brain down and reconcentrate, I've cut the alcohol out. So I'll have a nice glass of red wine if I go to a steakhouse, but I don't really drink during the week anymore. I quit smoking a little over 5 months ago now. And, I get up every morning at 4:30 to work out and get a cardio workout, because first I gained 25 pounds after I quit smoking. And I promised myself I was not going to buy bigger pants so I had a couple weeks where it was brutal pain, because I had pants screaming that they wanted to pop open. So I used that as my driver to, meal control and more vegetables. And I think the other thing that's come through is, my blood pressure has increased in the last 2 years. It's not terrible, but I'm 43 years old. And, now it's like, okay, if I don't start to handle this now, am I going to drop dead at 50 or 55? And nobody's, I kind of look at that and go, that sucks. So if I don't take care of those things now, if I don't take care of myself now and improve things, I don't want to be that, owner that drops dead at 50 or 55 or even 60. So like with anxiety, the meditation helps. There are pharmaceutical, drugs out there that also help to reduce anxiety, which, I use every once in a while. But, a lot of people, and I have friends and, people I know that use alcohol, and some use weed, and, there's other drugs out there that at the end of the day, those drugs typically ruin people's lives. So I think stepping back, and drugs played no role in, my friend taking his life, but you kind of look back at, I know people that deal with a lot of different issues, and you hear, things that happen behind closed doors after the fact. That was just like, God, if I would have known about that before, I would have helped that person, try to do something to change their perspective. So what I'd like to do for my employees is, is kind of put together a list of, you don't have to tell us, but why don't we put together a list of doctors that, like, if you have a therapist or psychiatrist, or, I had my neck fused 2.5 years ago. I had pain for almost 20 years and I avoided it. And this surgeon, at Rothman, I have C5, 6, and 7 fused together with a titanium plate. It was the best thing I've ever done, but I didn't want to do it because I was first scared of the procedure and saying I was okay until it became excruciatingly painful. So if I'm willing to put some of my experiences kind of in a company email, our employees can, go look at that and go, oh, Pete, Pete and Janine have a therapist that they go to talk about, we have a great marriage, but I mean, we'll talk about anything. I mean, we talk about our kids. One of our kids has a learning disability and an IEP. I mean, we go there to talk about her because we want to make sure we're doing the right thing. And, one of my kids was getting bullied, and it's, I want to go grab that father and, beat the shit out of him, but I know that's not the right thing to do. It's so, just like clients come to us because we're professionals and we know how to build these houses, that mental piece, which, it's huge. I mean, Anthony Bourdain, I love that. One of the few shows I actually watched, guy looked like he had a perfect life. I don't know why he took his life, but not saying everybody's going to take his life, but I think showing everybody that, we're all vulnerable. We're not Superman out there, that if it's at least offered, I mean, we don't have to get involved unless they want us to get involved, but, here are the resources that we know of that we like, and allow our employees to put additional names on it. I mean, that's kind of, the road we want to go to. And on the health side, we just bought a new office building. We're going to put a gym in it, and it's not going to make sense. So what I'm going to offer now to all my employees is I'm going to pay for your gym membership 100%. If you match the health criteria that, I forget what it is, you have to go 15 times a month or something. If you do that and you accomplish that goal, I will pay the difference. So your membership is free.
You're going to have to get them to GPS clock in and out on that too.
Oh, yeah? I thought it's done. Okay, I get it. Yeah.
At the gym.
Make sure it wasn't a 2-minute trip.
No, I think it's super important. I don't think that enough people talk about the mental health, and especially owning a business. Like, I know for myself personally, I've suffered from anxiety my entire life. And growing up, my parents, I was one of 5. Nobody talked about it. Life was too crazy to address it. It's just like, get your stuff together, get to school, do this. You're not quitting. It was never truly addressed. And through high school and through college, and it would just be like, well, go talk to somebody and do this, or go try this, or get on this medication. And it took until I was 23 where I was like, I couldn't get out of my own way. And you're trying to figure out what's wrong or what's your next step. And it was just like all you needed to do is take one little step, but that first step seemed like it was the most insurmountable mountain, and you couldn't get out from under yourself. And at 23, it was the same thing where you're probably experiencing now, where I was in college. You're going out, you're socializing, you're drinking, and then I'm trying to get anxiety under control. And I got to the point where I was like, this is completely counterproductive. So at 23, I stopped drinking completely. Not because I couldn't stop drinking or alcohol was my main issue, but I felt like it was getting in the way and stunting. It wasn't helping my anxiety. I'd feel worse the next day. You had like a temporary relief or whatever it may be. But long term, I couldn't work on my anxiety while I had something else that was a coping mechanism for that. And I think that a lot of guys and girls and kids experience that, and it just gets pushed off as stress, or that's just the craziness of today. And nobody puts anything in place to help them out until it's too late, or until life's too overwhelming, or, you know, they're sitting, living back at home, not going and getting a job because they don't know how to take that first step. I don't think that that's necessarily the issue within your company, but you don't know what people are struggling with. And it is nice to let people know that you're vulnerable as well, you know, because people are going to look at you whether you're the boss of your company or not, which I know you hate that term, but they will see you on a different level. And I feel like a lot of times that you'll allow yourself to do certain things or get away with certain things or hold yourself to a certain standard because other people are doing that. And I think that if somebody who's on a higher level or an upper level than you admits their shortcomings and their failures and things that they struggle with, you're going to realize that it's okay to work on those things yourself. And I think that, I mean, I have a ton of respect for doing that. And you've obviously experienced a lot of things firsthand. And a lot of people don't understand what that's like at all. But for the few that do, it's a huge thing for you to do that for your employees.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and I think you're right. I mean, you experienced it younger in life. I'm experiencing it later in life. It's just something, and even if it's not for employees, it might be for their spouse or their family members or somebody they know. I mean, my parents, you know, they're from Czechoslovakia. They immigrated here in '68, and you know, I have wonderful parents, but it was, you know, you don't cry, you don't talk about your problems. You just do it. And, you know, everybody thinks, running your own business, starting your own business, I'm sitting back, smoking a cigar and, have a good scotch and I'm just counting my money every night. And it's just, that's not what it is. I mean, it's a lot of hard work and dedication. And yeah, I mean, anxiety is something that I've always felt in the past and have kind of just dealt with, and honestly probably just had a drink or two and it was fine, you know. But then in the past 2 years, I mean, you know, you felt it. I mean, palpitations and just some of the effect, you know, some of the things you get into, you're just like, what the hell's going on? And it allowed me to step back and go, you're too busy because you're not willing to delegate, and you're just going, screw it, I'm going to do it myself. And it turns into, you're trying to get through 500 things in a day, you get through 100, and it just keeps compounding then after that. So part of the changes I've made to the company and promoting guys up and taking that accountability is really making a change in my life. But yeah, I think it's the first step sometimes, that it's good to talk to a professional or keep an open, you know, all our friends that I consider really close, we all talk about, you know, stuff we would have never talked about 2 years ago because everybody wants to live this perfect Facebook life, and that's bullshit. I mean, it's you know, and I'm not on Facebook ever, so I don't want to, you know, from what I hear, it's you know, everybody wants to portray these perfect lives.
No, you're right. You're
not
spot
true.
on.
Yeah. So I'll continue not to go on Facebook.
So I think that if you don't appear as if everything's perfect and that your company is thriving and that you don't have issues and your kids aren't beautiful and school's not going well for them, that something's wrong, you know? But I think that for 99% of people, that's just the case, that things aren't perfect, things aren't going well, you are struggling, and it's okay to talk about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely, because that's the reality. And you know what? Anybody I've been honest with, we all go through issues. And yes, maybe they're not anxiety, maybe they're depression, maybe they're dealing with a loved one that's, you know, elder. There's all these different things going on, and it's just, I guess I've kind of looked at it as, you know, if I'm truly trying to promote this team effort, I don't want everybody to think I'm perfect and life is super easy as the owner. Most people kind of know what's going on, and obviously they're going to know a lot more now if they listen to this podcast, if I haven't told them it. But yeah, I mean, I just think the more we start talking, actually, the better it's been over the past year. I'm blown away. I've even talked to some of my clients that then start telling me about their kids and the struggles they went through. And it's actually been a great thing to talk about. And like, how did you deal with this? Or I had a client go, what app do you use for meditation? And I'll start talking about Headspace, and, they pull out their phone, and then I'll get a, message 2 weeks later. Oh my God, this has been awesome, because it gets me to slow down for 20 minutes, and it makes a huge difference. And it's, so that's fun and cool. It's, you're not only dealing with building awesome houses, I'm getting personal with them. And I think, that touch has been, that's just been an added bonus, I guess.
So Pete, 12 years in, do you ever think back and wanting to stay like the first year when you were just running one at a time and not compounding all the stress?
No, sometimes I joke in the office that I want to fire everybody and go back to that, but there's no way I would ever go back to that.
Did they know it's a joke?
Yes. Yes. I'm very sarcastic. I'm one of those, I'll crack jokes, or I'll, like Alan, like sometimes I'll, he'll make a decision and I'll just go, oh, that was a bad move. And I'll just walk in my office and just stare at my computer and not say anything. And then he, so I probably shouldn't do that, because I'm giving him probably tons of anxiety. But it's, it's done out of jest. Because I mean, if we can't have fun doing this, what's the point? But yeah, everybody knows here, the employees matter the most to me. I mean, I want to train these guys. I want to help them out. I don't want to take credit for anything if I'm helping them get through something. I mean, I really want to promote them and push them to become better people, because I truly believe at the end of the day, they're not going to want to leave here. They're going to want to stay here and make it better. And, yeah, I mean, I keep talking culture, but I think culture, is probably the most important thing. And I try to stay humble with these guys and kind of remember, the roots, try to remember, where did I come from, and try to, keep applying that mentality, and, not take advantage of being the boss. Make sure I'm, one of the first ones here, or making sure I'm the last one here. It matters, but it really doesn't matter. It's just, it's getting things done. And my job, description has been changing every 2 months for the last, really, 4 years ago, we had 6 employees. Now we have 35 or 36 for today. The work is coming in, and my responsibility is trying to learn to be a better business person and sell now. That's my job description, but I'm still holding on to trying to get out to job sites and have conversations with John Marley or Matt Palmer or Mark Philly or anybody else. And, because I'm kind of losing that touch of educating myself of what goes into the houses, or, any of the new technologies. I mean, I am keeping up on certain things, but I'm losing some of my knowledge on, cabinetry, or, I don't even know what type of paints we use now, but I know we better be using the best ones out there, and things like that. But yeah, I help with mechanical systems and working through, because most of our houses are geothermal, and kind of working through the best way to zone it, and inefficiencies and site work. I'm still pretty strong at this stormwater management. I know how to design. So I'm trying to take my education and pass it on to these, guys and gals.
So with the 3 VPs now, you earlier said that they're kind of taking your role, and I think you just answered it. So your role is transitioning into more of a sales and a mentor towards them, similar to, without the sales. You had mentioned that you're more of a mentor on the maintenance division, or the property management, where you're there more of you and Steve are there as a mentor, I forget the president's name, but
Alan Butler. Yep.
So
yeah,
and that's kind of is that, you know, you just said that it's switching every 2 months, and this is current, so it's kind of sales and mentor towards the 3 VPs. But fast forward a year, you know, or fast forward to when you are in a position that this is where I want to settle down. Is it getting? Do you want to stay in sales, or do you want to be back in the field bossing around John Marley?
I think the best way this could play out for me is maybe in 10 or 15 years, I go back to being a superintendent where John Marley's my boss at that point. Because I am going to screw with him so bad. And
well
when
played.
There's money, you know, when there's money issues or, hey, we have to take this $5,000 hit, I don't have to deal with it anymore. It's, hey, I'm building this house, you know, get the hell off my site. I'm doing a good job, and you worry about that kind of stuff. So
it is nice to just work for somebody, you know?
Yeah. I mean, there is I do have that love affair of, I want to go back and build a couple cool houses as kind of my, you know, leading into my retirement. So
That's cool.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I hope to do. And, you know, that's growing this company. I mean, it's, you know, once again, it's the hope is to kind of sell it off to the employees and, you know, let them kind of run with it. And hopefully they'll hire me as a superintendent at that point when that happens.
Sorry, we got a little mouse in the podcast room that keeps making an appearance.
I'm like, what is that?
This thing's tiny.
Oh boy!
It's like
yeah.
There's definitely 100 of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably not the same one as last week.
Probably not.
So what do you guys find is the hardest part of running your companies, or what would you like to change about it?
Man, wasn't expecting that. I think for us, this year has been trying for us. We've grown a lot. We've switched people's positions around a lot. And we did a lot of projects last year, and not that we made the mistake, but we just shouldn't have done as many projects, and we should have had more dedication to single projects rather than trying to manage multiple at a time, or put a team of 2 or 3 people on 2 projects, 3 projects. So, like about 4 or 5 months ago, hit the brakes hard with our kind of process and got everyone together and just kind of explained what have we learned over this course of the year, where did we fail, where did we strive, and how do we continue down the path of being successful, and what does that look like, and what does everyone individually need, and what does everyone as a team need. So for the last 4 or 5 months, it's been kind of building the process, the process and figuring out where we are going right, so we can correct what we've done wrong in the past.
And is that anticipation of wanting to grow, or is that what's the reasoning behind that?
I think because we grew so fast that we were taking on so much work that I looked at it as we started becoming more mediocre, where I've never done this to be mediocre. I've always wanted what we do to be the best. And when I started realizing that, I'd ask the question, well, why is that like that? Well, we had to do this and we had to get to this other job, and it became this thing of schedule and speed. And I was like, that's never been the goal here. I've always wanted to give the opportunity for every single person involved to take the time necessary to do their absolute best job. So
well, once you figure that out, Nick, I'd really like you to let me know, because that's
proprietary
all the time.
That's proprietary.
Oh, that's proprietary. Yeah. Well, is there the option that I can buy out your company and you come work for us?
Yeah, sure.
All right. It's on the table.
Everyone's listening to this. Wait, what?
That would never happen.
No, that's Nick's baby.
No, what I genuinely love about this podcast, and you mentioned a group that you were part of. I forget what you called. Vistage. But there's I talk to guys in the Builder 20 groups, and all of these peer groups that I keep talking about how I want to join, and I just keep not doing it. I look into it, I fill out the form, and then I don't. But what I was getting at is what I really like about this platform and the podcast and talking to you, Pete, and all the other guests that we've ever had on this is that every week I leave here, I'm like, everyone has the same shit. Everyone's dealing with the same crap, dealing with the same problems, like everyone. And the fact that, we have some guys that are more open and transparent like you talking about it is comforting. And, in a weird way, it's like, okay, so I'm not so far off. I am doing the right thing. There's been other times where we've had someone on where I leave here, I'm like, I'm doing this all wrong. I have the wrong outlook on this. But I think you had made the point that having that network of people where you can get in a room and you're all talking about the issues and you're seeing it from all these different directions or even different industries is hugely beneficial.
Yeah, I mean, especially we have it's called an executive session. That if I have a major issue, I basically put that issue out to everybody. They go around, they give their opinions on what you should do. It's like having your own board where nobody on that board is sugarcoating anything they're telling you.
Yeah.
So if you're passionate and you want to sink your money into something and you have 12 people tell you that is the stupidest thing in the world, I'm going to listen to that. But if I went to Steve Minton, I mean, he's pretty good at telling me I'm stupid. So, but I have, talking with people, like if you remove that sugarcoating, that's been huge for me. You're getting honest answers. And I think, this podcast this is great. I mean, I think what you're doing, of course, I'm not as hip and as young as you guys, so it's taken me a little bit of time to, kind of get in on this. But I think in the last 10 days, I've probably listened to about 15 podcasts. And I think it's great. And this is the kind of stuff that, Marley, once again, he doesn't share this information because he's probably prepping to, get Marley Builders going soon. And, so I don't know, maybe I should put out there that we're looking for a new VP of field operations potentially. And please send your resumes in. So, yeah.
John, what about you?
I feel like I can't really contribute to I think that if I had to change, I would need to implement some business practices rather than what I'm doing right now. I understand right now I don't delegate. Everything's on me. And, I'm 33 now. My daughters are 6 and 3, and realizing that there needs to be something in place for down the road just because I can't go at the rate that I am every day. So I feel like as far as what I need to do, I don't necessarily want to scale or put a giant team in place, but I need to start implementing something where I have less responsibility for the daily operations of what's going on.
And is that on the sales side or the actual craftsmanship side?
It's very difficult for me just with the level of execution that we try and hit in our customer base and like how much control I have over everything to spread myself and not just be paying attention to what's on my plate at any given time. I'm always booking for months down the road, but it's so hard to give your attention to your job, to whoever's working for you, to your subs, to your vendors, and to potential customers at the same time. There's just like, I'm wearing too many hats and there's too much on my plate. And on the scale that I'm doing it, it's still relatively manageable, but it's not the longevity of it. I'm going to get burnt out.
Yeah. So when you go on a vacation for a week or 10 days, I mean, have you had a vacation for a week or 10 days lately?
So it's like the way that I'm structured is so small that if I'm like going away and creating busy work for whoever's there at that point, or if I schedule it for the end of a job, or if I schedule it for where like we have inspections going on, it's relatively easy to do because I don't have multiple things going on at once. It's just that it's always work. It's work when I'm laying in bed at night. It's work over the weekend. It's just nonstop. I am able to go away. I am able, I don't have multiple jobs going where the phone's always ringing for subs, inspectors, deliveries, whatever it may be. It's hard to go, from 8 a.m. till 10 o'clock at night every single day.
Yeah, and were you the one that was saying in another podcast you don't work on Sundays?
I generally don't work on the weekends. I feel like I work enough during the week. It's almost like the week is whatever hours I have to put in. We put in during the week, and I try not to work. I'll work miscellaneous weekends if we need to for schedule reasons. But again, I just feel like I'm not going to be able to go at this rate in 15 years from now and 20 years from now. So something's going to have to change.
Yeah. Well, I guess, start to figure that out. So, because I think I felt the same way, and I think it happens quicker than you think it might happen. Not sure if that'll be your case, but it's always good. It's good to plan for the future without spending too much time, because the reality is you really just don't know where it's going to go. So, How about you, John?
I'm good. No, I'm joking. Pete, I'm super intrigued by your level of responsibility, not just for the jobs, but also for the personnel on the jobs. And I'm gonna guess and say that's beyond just your employees, but that's also for the subs that are there, that you feel responsible for them. And that's the reason why I asked about I think we all talk about this, that at some point, like, you always feel like maybe it would be easier if I was doing one at a time, or maybe it'd just be easy if I didn't build this whole monster up. And to be as responsible as you are for this many different things, that can get very heavy. So, like, a lot of things that you said today click with me on where I'm 40. So it's like we're not too far off. But, like, the little things when my first son, who's now 12, was born, when I had, like, maybe it was that little palpitation, and I was like, whatever, like, just kept running through the wall and kept going. But now I'm 40, that's now AFib. Like, that you can keep going at that pace, Tyler. There's things that are going to change the parameters on what you do that will slow you down. And then now it's not that you're slowing down, it's something slowing you down, that you physically can't do what you used to do. And that has a greater impact emotionally, mentally, and all that along the way. And it's like, all right, I used to be able to work, whatever. I just would work. Everyone would say, hey, you're going to get burnt out. And I'd be like, whatever. But maybe if I listened to those guys, my elders, let's say, earlier, that maybe I could have paced myself out better. That's what I think about daily. Like, now that my kids are 12 and I'm building good quality. And the other thing that lays heavy on me, not just on this podcast, but other ones, is like, Tyler's like, hey, do you put 100% in to each client, or whoever it was that asked that? And I was like, I drive home going, am I putting 100% in? Like, I want to think that I am. And at the same time, I'll listen to this podcast and go, man, would the burden of 2 more people help alleviate what would that alleviate, Like, just and I respect, like, having you on the podcast is like, that's a huge number, the employees you just said. Like, that just puts me in panic mode. Like, just that, and knowing that I have to feed that machine but then the other flip side is that, like, you coming in on Sundays for 6 hours a day with your partner, like, what would I have to, that's like, is that the controller? Bring the controller in, and now I get my Sundays back with my family. Like, how many moments did I miss with, you have 3 daughters? Like, I mean, there's that balance factor that is so impossible to do, but to do that, and then let's say you do have a health issue or a health scare, and then it's not your choice anymore to put yourself first, because I don't think any of us really do. When it comes down to the meat and potatoes, is that it's always the project, it's always the guys, it's always that, like, the guys I bring on now, I probably don't need to give him a company truck and get him out of a van, but I'm doing that because it's like, I know exactly where he is right now, where I was 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I know how much further this will go for him, his family, his personal life. Like, I'm just giving one example, but it's like all that. Like, we had a meeting last Friday, we had dinner, and Ben was there with his wife, and we never get to hang out. He's my partner, 50-50. And it's like, we were sitting there, and someone asked him that was at the table, like, do you really love what you do every day? And his wife answered for him and goes, he's up at 4:30 every day because he's dying to get to the job site. And I worked with him before this company, and like, it was dreadful. Like, it was a bad environment, and we went to work because we had to make everything else happen. So to be able to give an environment like that, it's worth whatever pressure I put on myself. But I just don't know if it's worth 36 employees. So it's like, how do you? I look at you when you're having the conversation, and I really want to have like that deeper conversation and be like, what, like a deep breath. Like, I know what I'm going through daily, and it's like, you have the work life stuff, you have the work stuff, you have the employees, then you have your personal life, you have your family, and then you have your health. And it is like not cut and dry like work and personal. There's so many different factors that are involved with that, you know, and it's
absolutely,
and it's a really, really tough thing to kind of put enough effort into each one of those, and to not value one more than the other. And that's, I think it's just a balance. And I mean, the simple thing for me is, if I'm a very optimistic person, and that puts myself into situations that doesn't help me when I want to be transparent. And it's like, oh yeah, I'm dealing with these subs, so I'll get this stuff back in the next couple of days, blah, blah. And I'm not a guy that leaves stuff wide open, like, oh yeah, no, I'll get that in the next few weeks. Like, I've got site guys that are like, I'll get to that in the next few weeks. It's like, I get that you're not going to let me down, but you're also not setting any precedent on when it's going to get done. So I'd rather be like, hey, the next 2 days, and if I got to slide it, it's going to be the next day because so-and-so's having a struggle. So for me, it's having an open line of communication is one thing, but making it accurate, because I am the professional, and not being so optimistic is probably my biggest struggle on a daily basis, and it has been for decades. It's nothing new.
Yeah, and I agree. I try to stay very optimistic, and I think it's a struggle, but I think that also, you know, all these things, even if you're pessimistic, if those are your strengths and that's what you're playing on, I mean, that's only going to make you better. So, but yeah, I mean, for me, you know, what's the right number? I don't know. You know, it's all a risk at the end of the day. I mean, there's no blueprints for, you know, growing a company and, you know, finding the right people. It's just, you kind of do what you feel is right. And, you know, there's some luck in there and there's some hard work, but I think it's right. And I think, you know, at some point you're going to need to look at it and go, is it worth to hire another person or two to help alleviate? So they're giving your, you know, customers 100% while you're off giving them 100%, and also then, you know, selling or doing, you know, something else that you know you're interested in. So yeah, it's a balance act, and it's that work-life balance, and you know, what works and doesn't work. And for us, it's been a trial and error, and it's bumpy and not easy. And yeah, I don't know, maybe I will fire everybody tonight and just go back to one house. We'll see.
Who's picking up John Marley?
I think John Marley would be just fine. So, yeah. But it's not going to happen. Marley's. I'm pretty confident Marley's a lifer here.
Yep.
But hopefully he's not listening to this podcast, so his ego gets all pumped up and he starts getting on Instagram. Did you hear what my boss said? Did you hear what my boss said?
He can't live his life forever, you know. If he's got these girls, how long did it last? He was trying to bring him back to his little trailer hut thing on his parents' property.
What are you talking about?
This is going way back. This is
a story from New York City.
John Marley used to live in a tiny house on his parents' property.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, yep. And now he upgraded.
Yeah, to a shop house.
Yeah, he bought a
garage medium or whatever.
So now he's got like a bedroom above his car and his mini truck and everything else. Like, that's only gonna last with girls for so long. They're gonna be like, John, I need a house. You know?
Yeah. Well,
this is his upgrade. I
don't know, man.
And then the next thing,
he'll get there. He'll learn. So, you know, but he's enjoying it. And yeah, it's the house. I need to follow it more. I was watching him pour his concrete countertop, but, you know, or, you know, he makes sure whatever dating app or whatever. He creates a prerequisite of here's what's required if you're going to date John Marley.
The race cars, ride mini bikes, shoot guns in the property,
tacos,
giant bonfires, drifting on the weekends. An allowance for tires. All that good stuff. Yeah, absolutely. So, but yeah, he's been.
We know it's past your bedtime. 9:00. We're on borrowed time at this point. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for your being open, being honest, talking about basically anything and everything. I don't think we really had an agenda to touch on, but I mean, I'm personally glad that you opened up about the mental health issues and things that you've experienced, and just kind of some insight into the business. And we're honest with everyone, that it's a struggle and it's not easy and everything's not perfect and it's not necessarily what it appears on social media and Facebook all the time. So
thank you. Absolutely. No, thank you guys for having me. I mean, thank John Marley for kind of pushing this, because I was like, it's 7:00 at night. Like, are you kidding me? They can't do it at like 2 p.m. or so. But no, yeah, it's I do like to share and kind of I don't want to say swap knowledge. So I think this is something that this might be part of an additional piece that I add for my education. And yeah, I know a bunch of people always say I should go to this event or that event. I'm actually going to the International Builders Show for the first time in, I don't know, 12 or 14 years, just because I do feel a little bit out of touch and kind of want to see some of the new stuff that's going on just for my own education.
We'll see you there.
Yeah, you guys are going to be there. Well, we'll have to meet up and get a couple drinks then.
Damn right.
For sure.
Or steaks.
So, yeah, or steaks. Even better. I heard there's some great steakhouses. I've never been. So, yeah, let's get that on the calendar. And, you guys with, this podcast, I'm sure you're going to be able to get somebody to pay for that steak dinner at no cost to us. So
Spire Builders. Spire Builders.
We'll see. So
Pete, thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. And you guys, I'm pretty sure have my contacts, so feel free to reach out, and we'll see where this goes.
Thanks again. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
All right, guys. Thanks, John. Thanks, Tyler. Thanks.
Yep. Have a good night.
You too, man.
Thank you.
Bye.
So big thanks to Pete for joining us on that podcast. I know John Marley pushed him pretty hard, but glad he did. But I want you guys to stay tuned, because we have Joe Cresta, and he is from Project Healing Waters. He is a New England regional coordinator.
And a veteran.
And he's a veteran. And to stay on our theme of honoring Veterans Day that's coming up, we're going to speak with him for a few minutes. All right, Joe. So we are adding a little segment to the end of these.
Veterans Day.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I like it. I like that energy. A little segment to the end of a couple of these podcasts leading up to Veterans Day. And I think, Tyler, did you reach out?
I've spoke with Joe before, and then, I don't know, you sent me a DM?
Yeah, you made the post last week about what you guys were doing, and to reach out if somebody's interested in it.
And you're the regional manager for Project Healing Water.
Yeah, regional coordinator for New England, yeah. So I oversee currently 15 programs over New England. We're adding 3 more next year.
Well, before we get into what you do, what is Project Healing Water? So
it was started in 2004 at Walter Reed Medical Center by Ed Nicholson. And basically, he sought to rehabilitate emotionally and physically the disabled veterans coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan through fly fishing and fly fishing outings and fly tying and stuff like that. So it started there, and it's gone to there. We're in every state in the country now except Rhode Island, but that'll be next year. Over 220 programs. Last year, we served over 9,500 veterans.
Wow.
We have one program in Germany, too, at that base there. So,
why fly fishing?
It's just it keeps your mind off things that would normally send you to a dark place. Okay. Fly fishing is different than regular fishing because you're more involved. It's not just throwing out the hook and the worm.
And waiting.
Right. Yeah. Your mind is focused on that specific task, so it allows you to disengage from whatever demons you were fighting before, if that's the case.
Sure.
Yeah. So, and it usually doesn't take you to an ugly place. It's usually in the mountains somewhere or in a nice river.
And you said
Something
who founded it?
calming.
Ed Nicholson, retired Navy now.
So was that a hobby of his, fly fishing, that he realized that was doing him?
Correct. Yep.
And he was like, I got to share this with the rest.
Yeah,
of
basically. Yep.
the
Yeah,
military.
he was down there recovering from his injuries, and as he was walking around, he's like, you know what, I got to make the connection here.
And you said that was 2008?
2004.
2004.
Yeah. Yeah, we were official in 2006, but
When did you get involved?
2012.
Okay. And what's your role as regional coordinator for New England? What's that mean?
So I just oversee all 15 programs right now. I work on building new programs, adding new programs, and just basically providing support for all my program leads now, whatever they might need.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we do regional training every couple of years. Next year we're going to Montana for that. The TV show Spire Builders built a ranch out there for us in Montana, specifically for us to use. We send 160 veterans there a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It'd be more, but Montana gets snow so early, so it kind of puts a damper on that.
Sure.
They had like 2 feet a couple weeks ago.
And you served as well, right?
Marine Corps, yes.
Nice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So he would take both of you out. It's not just
We've
that he
established
looks like
we've
he would.
established that he's bigger and tougher than us. So
And Marine Corps.
yeah.
Yep.
Yep. Let me get a picture of this actually. So you guys feel less like men.
Why don't we get? Oh, come on.
Yeah, my mics are in the way.
All right, I got it. Yeah, I spoke with Joe, I don't know, maybe a year or so ago, I feel like.
Yeah, something like that. You had made a post that I commented on, and then we kind of went from there.
Yeah.
I forget what it was specifically, though.
Yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's funny because my life must be a mess because I was just cleaning out like random stuff in my office, and I found like the thank you card that you had sent me.
Oh, yeah.
Just like I think it was with my receipts, maybe.
Well, it's funny you
just
mentioned the thank you card because I'm only 38, and I always write a thank you card. I handwrite a thank you card, and the feedback I've gotten from donors and stuff, just from something that to me is just an automatic. A thank you card is, I mean, you would think I gave birth to their children the way that, you know. So it just seems like that's lost these days for some reason, and I don't know why.
Well,
true.
everything is a text or an email.
Well, which is, you know, cool, but I mean, a thank you card is,
No, absolutely.
yeah,
Becoming more valuable, I think.
30 seconds of work and 50 cents. I mean, no brainer to me, but.
So leading, good.
Did you, I'm just curious. So I've been super intrigued with fly fishing forever. I've never done any sort of fly fishing, but I always feel like it looks like it'd be so amazing. Like you said, it just seems when somebody knows what they're doing, it's almost like you could just watch it all day long. And then you're also, I feel like anyone who you see fly fishing, it's always the most perfect place and it's so beautiful and so serene. Did you fly fish prior to this, before getting involved with all of this?
Yes, I did. I joined, I'm the president of a fly fishing club in Saugus, actually. And when I first joined, we really didn't do anything. I saw Project Healing Waters on a TV show, and I said, oh, why don't we get involved with this? And then it just kind of went from there. But I had fly fish prior to this, yeah.
Have you guys ever been fly fishing?
No.
I want to so bad. I feel like I'd be terrible at it.
My guy John, that's his release.
Really?
He gets up
Really?
at like 4 a.m. and he's like waist deep.
I've seen
I think you sent me a picture one
Yeah.
day. It was like, that's a vintage shirt in the front row.
Yeah, he was at some meeting I saw. I was like, yeah. Yeah.
I was all excited. My guy's in the front row, not in the back.
Yeah, he's actually gone on a guided trip with one of my buddies.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's all about it. He's all business.
So what can, we do to help, promote, Project Healing Water, or, how can we or other people get involved with this?
So the biggest thing is just letting people know we exist. I found that was a issue when I first started. People didn't really know about us. Everything is provided free to the veteran. They just got to show up, basically. It's open to any disabled veteran. Doesn't matter if it's 0 or 100%. And we do trips all over the country, all over the world. Regional trips, local trips. Everything's free.
And can we, not being a veteran, can we get involved with helping, beyond promotion?
Oh, yeah, we have most of our volunteers aren't veterans.
Okay.
Yeah, some veterans do step up and become volunteers, but most of my volunteers are not veterans.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So they're helping facilitate the
right.
trips.
It doesn't necessarily have to be a fly fishing instructor. Some guys just do like the IT end of it, like doing the paperwork stuff. And like,
Sure.
I used to have a woman that used to cook for us at the events. So it's not just
not much of
fly
a cook
fishing
myself, but
it's not just fly fishing. There's other ways to support.
that's cool.
We just had a big fundraiser in Boston a couple weeks ago that brought in over 100,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how many members did you say?
Last year it was over 9,500 veterans.
Wow.
Yeah.
And why is Rhode Island late to the game?
It's just getting the volunteers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's all. To get the
Small
VA in
state.
Rhode Island's ready to go.
We're calling you out, Rhode Island.
It's
I
just
know.
getting the
Bruh,
volunteers to go.
selfish.
Seriously.
They're selfish up there, huh?
Well, it's down there for us.
Up there for me.
Yeah, a lot of people talk a big game about volunteering, but when it comes push comes to shove, it's like, oh.
Well, I think the bottom line is that, like, yeah, you can post, Happy Veterans Day when the day comes, but like, we have a platform, try to bring more awareness and more options to people that maybe it's beyond a post.
Right.
And
I mean,
that's
the
what
biggest
we're
thing I
saying.
hear in the program from participants is this program saved my life.
Wow.
That's
And
huge.
to hear that, and the first time I heard it, it was like, oh, it's just fly fishing. I didn't put the two and two together till we got more involved and more involved. It's like, okay, now I get it, and and everyone benefits from it, whether it's a volunteer or a participant.
So how many? I may have missed it. How many events a year do you do? Like let's say if someone hears this, they want to go to the website.
So each program, the Saugus program meets twice a month. Most programs meet. Everyone meets at least once a month. Most are two. Some are every week. So it just depends on the program and where they do it and what they get for feedback from the veterans.
What's the website?
ProjectHealingWaters.org.
And then they can get all the
Yeah,
information.
you can click
there.
on whatever region of the country you're in, and then it'll break it down to where it is. It'll go regional coordinator and then down to individual programs.
That's heavy. Like hearing something like this saved my life.
Yeah.
And like you just said, at first your immediate reaction is like, "What are you talking about? It's fly fishing."
Right,
But
exactly. Yep.
when you start realizing what it's actually doing, it's kind of funny because we just ended this podcast with Pete and talked about mental health and making sure guys didn't feel alone, and felt as though they could openly speak to, you call them the demons inside that might cause anxiety or worse, could lead to death, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's very much when you make that connection, it's heavy, but it must feel really good to know that you're helping and you're getting, like, you're putting together this platform where people come there, and whether there's 100 people or 3 people, they're all there to simply relax.
Right, exactly. And whether you're a participant, volunteer, everyone gets something from it, because usually sometimes you don't even do anything. We just sit there and BS and just talk about what we did in the military.
But that's what that's
that's
what
the
people
camaraderie
need.
they were missing before that they get. And we don't talk about injuries. I've known guys 2 years and I couldn't tell you what their injury was. 'Cause
Sure.
we don't. It's irrelevant to the conversation.
Yeah, right, because it's not what they're there for.
Right, exactly.
They're there
Yeah.
for to have someone else to talk to, whether
Right.
it's about fly fishing or just
Yeah, exactly. How bad the
Their
MREs
coffee.
were. Yeah.
They're not
Yeah.
alone.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And everyone's become friends now. They hang out, outside of the program. And
I can only speak to our industry because I've only been in construction, but that's like that's what I relate this to, kind of on a smaller scale, in the sense that we constantly we have anxiety with our own businesses and being a business owner and being in business and the employees or cash flow, whatever. And the biggest issue that we all talk about is that we all feel alone.
right.
And I know I'm trying to relate to something that's much more serious, but I think that's a general consensus across many industries, the military, veterans, is that no one is alone in what they're battling, and no one is the only person that has went through this,
Exactly.
or
Yep.
no one is has it worse than someone else has had it. It's everyone. There's literally thousands, millions of people that are going through
Right.
this.
You just got to find the platform to come together and discuss that.
And
yeah.
talk
Yep.
and have someone that But I think it's really encouraging to what the goal would be is to encourage people to reach out to apply to
Right, exactly. And like I said,
program
the
like
biggest thing is to tell people we don't talk about the injuries. And
right
I mean, if you want to bring it up, by all means, but that's not what we're there for.
right.
Yeah. It's the camaraderie and just the BS. And then, sometimes we'll sit there for hours and not get anything done, but we've sat there and just
Yeah, but I feel like that's the best.
Maybe catch a couple fish.
Right, exactly, yeah.
You know?
Yeah. We were on Chronicle last year. I tried for a year, and then they reached out to me on a Tuesday. They said, we're coming Thursday. I'm like, okay, I'll see if I can put this together. And they were great. They were awesome. And the whole time I'm sweating it out. I'm like, we just got to catch one fish. We just got to catch one fish to get on camera. And the only thing we catch was like a 3-inch bass. And me and the kid they were catching it would just die and laughing because like, this is going to be on national television now. A little 3-inch fish as I'm talking about these giant trout.
Hey, most TV they just put the hook. They put the fish on the hook for you.
Yeah, but we got good feedback from it. Yeah, but like I said, just getting the word out there about that we exist and the resources there for people.
Do you think that a big issue is there's a lot of men and women who are kind of on the fence about thinking that they need help or that this would help, or they're just, for whatever reason, afraid to reach out or attend something like this?
Yeah, I think so. When I first started, I sat there for 2 years just staring at the wall, waiting for veterans. They were trying to find veterans that wanted to come, whether because they thought fly fishing was too difficult or they didn't want to talk about what they went through. And I can teach you to fly fish in 10 minutes. I mean, we don't talk about what you went through unless you bring it up. It's just that camaraderie of hanging out with someone that went through the same stuff, even if it was just boot camp and not necessarily combat vets. Everyone knows the stupid stuff we do in the military. Hurry up and wait and standing in line for hours on end and standing at attention. So being able just to talk about that, even just that, is beneficial to the guys, I think. But,
so how do you think that you kind of break that down and kind of break those walls down and get to those people who are on the fence or who right now aren't reaching out to anyone? What needs to be done to kind of shed light and awareness on this, other than just getting the word out?
Just getting over the preconceived notions of fly fishing. I don't look like a fly fisherman. If you've seen a river runs through it, they don't look like me. They're not tattooed. They're not.
This is a podcast. No one knows what you look like.
Right. I mean, they're not tattooed. They're not wearing just jeans and t-shirts. They're in like an Ella Bean catalog or whoever's catalog. So, just relating on like, this guy looks like me. And that's how I got one participant. He's become a good friend of mine.
Really?
As we met at a bike rally, and I said, just come down, man. It doesn't cost nothing. And if you don't like it, you don't like it. And he's like, all right. And then he spoke at our fundraiser a couple weeks ago. And he said that because I was the tattooed guy, and he was tattooed, that kind of broke that initial barrier down. And then he's been out to Montana. He's been everywhere now.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
I feel like that's such a great way to get people together. Like, I don't know. I feel like most of the ways that if I was looking for an outlet like this and somebody's like, yo, you can come fly fish in Montana for free, I'd be like, all right, I'm down.
Right. That's what I thought. And sometimes it's difficult getting the vets. And that's the disconnect I'm trying to figure out, is getting them to cross to come over to us. And having other vets just spread the word about us is a little easier because they've already done it and been there and done that, so to speak.
I think Tyler's right. It's that it's getting over the the fear of joining for whatever reason, whether it's like you said, you not sure how to fly fish, or I'm not going to fit in, or I'm afraid to rehash my memories, or things along that line. It's that I think has to be the most difficult thing, and I think talking about it and bringing awareness, and obviously this is why we wanted you on the tail end here, is to help bring awareness. But I think knowing that people outside of being a veteran can also get involved and volunteer, and and help facilitate that. I mean, Tyler wants to fly fish, so he could.
I extended that.
I mean, I'll come cook for you guys and.
If you're cooking, then
he's actually not a bad cook.
Well, by all means, I'm no stranger to food.
So I guess it's crazy. You don't really think about this stuff until somebody calls up, puts you on the spot, makes you do something that you normally don't do. But it feels like the basis of what you're doing is just trying to get people to come out. And whether it's talk, whether it's fly fish, you're basically getting people to come out of their shell and socialize some. So you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I've never served in the military. But for these people who are coming back from experiencing what they have, they could probably very easily isolate themselves and not have anyone to relate to, or not know how to re-enter into society. And this is an easy first step to that re-entry, where you can just get yourself around people, whether, it's food, it's hanging out, it's having a conversation, it's fly fishing, but basically you're there to try and facilitate these people just kind of getting back and having some sort of normalcy in their life.
Right, exactly. Yeah, a big thing when you get out is in the military, regardless of the branch, you're held accountable for the littlest thing. I've seen guys get in trouble just for getting a sunburn. And when you come back in the civilian world, it's kind of like the Wild West sometimes, where people are just doing whatever and there's no accountability. And that can get frustrating because you spent X amount of time being held accountable for all your actions and overseeing other guys, and then you come out and like, okay, now what? And so a lot of people have trouble with that, just adjusting back to civilian life, especially the longer you've been in. So yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's a very casual environment. Most of them are. Some are at a fishing club. Some are at American Legions. They're all at different locations. But it's just a group of guys, girls hanging out and just talking, and then fly fishing, and then once they get it, they're hooked, and then I got you, and they don't leave.
Pun intended.
Right? Yeah. Yeah.
I gotta learn how to fly fish. One of my customers just started fly fishing too.
Yeah, and like I said, the cost is free for all veterans, and I think people just assume that fly fishing is expensive in general, which it doesn't have to be. Like any hobby, I mean,
yeah,
expensive as you want it to be. But
so people can donate.
Yep.
Just from the website, don't have to have a donation.
Yeah. There's a link on the website you can donate to. Yep.
Yeah. So there you go, guys.
So projecthealingwaters.org.
Correct.
And then you guys on Instagram?
I'm on Instagram as Tattoo Fly Guy. Project Healing Waters is on as PHWFF.
Fantastic.
Some programs have their own individual ones.
Yeah, so we'll have to get all of your information so that we can kind of tag you on this.
Yeah, I'll put it right in the link underneath this podcast.
Yeah.
Okay.
The details.
Great.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so I think,
there's 4 million disabled veterans in the United States. We serve 9,500, which is, I think, less than 0.5% or something.
Yeah,
so
it's not enough.
And, even if you just took all the organizations that treat, or cater to disabled veterans, I still don't think it's even 10% of that number. So
Fraction, yeah.
It's a huge amount of people out there that.
Well, any veterans out there listening to this, I mean, I think this is your opportunity to reach out. I mean, they can reach out to you, Joe, directly or through the website, and
whatever's easier.
Explore the avenue of the camaraderie and joining a group of guys and girls that share similar stories or past, but more importantly, share the interest of healing.
Right. That's the end goal, is to ultimately heal.
Right.
And those who aren't veterans, click the link, donate some time, put some money into it or some effort.
Yeah, and remember, Veterans Day is coming up, so let's we're asking everyone to do a little
step up.
Yeah, step up and share and volunteer in local groups and organizations.
Yeah, if you're not interested in fly fishing, I can pinpoint you in the right direction to cater whatever your interests are. Or something.
So DM Joe, Tattoo Fly Guy.
Yeah.
Joe, did you say what you do now that you're not in the active military?
I run a pest control company.
Oh, I feel like I talked to you about some poop that I found in my shop once.
Yes, that's what it was. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
I put a trap out there and it's still set. I never caught anything.
Yeah, I remember that now. Yeah, in your garage or something.
Yeah, it's out in my shop. I feel like the poop's still there too. I still got to clean that up.
Yeah. No, he's just like the rest of my customers now.
How'd you get involved with that?
I worked for a buddy of mine. I still do during the day. I do my own thing. But we met through the fishing club, actually.
That's cool.
What type of pest control? Anything?
Yeah, anything. Pests and animals.
And animals. So we're not just talking like bugs. You're talking
raccoons,
animals
skunks,
too.
Squirrels, yeah.
Yes, you probably have great pest control stories.
Everyone says, "Oh, the bugs don't bother you," and I said, "No, it's the filth that people live in." Straight up disgusting filth, which I'm sure you guys see.
Oh yeah.
Doing remodels.
I can imagine bugs that you have to go in. Probably a reason why they have them in the first place.
Right. Yeah. Usually, depending on the bug.
All right. So I want to hear your craziest raccoon story.
The lady said she just started hearing them a week before I got there, and when I finally got them, the babies were 4 months along. saying I had to chase them around the attic because I couldn't catch them. And she's like, "Oh, I just started hearing them." I'm like, "No, you didn't. No, you didn't."
No. See, I can deal with most of those animals. Like, they don't bother me. I actually find many of them very interesting. But raccoons freak me out because they're not afraid of you.
No,
Like,
that mother raccoon was pissed that day.
Yeah, like raccoons, I feel like you can walk up to outside and they'll just look at you like, yeah, what are you going to do? They usually don't run away. I mean, if you chase them, they'll run away. But I feel like raccoons they scare me. I don't like raccoons.
Yeah, the mother raccoons can be pretty aggressive, yeah. I don't know if there's a picture on my Instagram thing about that day, but yeah, she swore up and down. I just started hearing them a week ago. I go, no, lady, those raccoons are ready to leave and have their own babies.
All right, what else have you caught?
Pretty much everything. Skunks, a lot of squirrels.
How do you deal with a skunk? It's going to spray you, right?
You just walk up quietly, throw a sheet over it. As long as you don't jar it excessively, it won't. I've never had a skunk spray on me.
Wow.
If they can't see you.
Right, yeah. Yeah, just walk up calmly, cover with a sheet.
And pick it up. Bring it to the woods? Or do you guys?
No, that's illegal in Massachusetts, unfortunately.
What, bringing them to the
relocation, woods? Yeah.
So you have to kill them?
I thought relocation was just a term for killing them.
No, it's just I can bring it to a rehabilitator if it's injured or euthanasia, or I can release it on site, depending on. But yeah, it's a state law. I got nothing I can do about that. But
is that just for skunks or for
any? For all animals.
Huh.
Yeah.
What about
usually a skunk just gets lost.
I've definitely broken that law.
You live here now.
Right, yeah.
So opossums are disgusting looking, but they're actually not that mean.
They just get a bad rap because of the way they look.
Yeah, I feel like I saw something recently where they're actually like super nice.
Yeah, they don't do any damage or anything. They'll eat your plants, but I mean everything eats your plants.
They're the grossest looking things ever.
Right, yeah. It's just
But they're not mean?
No.
Nah, they just look it.
They're like super gentle.
Yeah. Resting bitch faces, they say.
Yeah. So we had an opossum in our backyard once, and I let both my dogs out, and they decided that they wanted to play tug of war with it for a couple of minutes until I got outside. And I guess she had babies and had like all the babies in her pouch because opossums are marsupials.
Yeah, only one in North America. Yeah.
Yeah, so like all the babies went flying, and they're just these little pink babies that were squeaking all over the lawn. Like my wife and I, so we were renting. We got the opossum into the apartment, and she's like, "What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do?" Because the opossum is just playing dead because that's what they do. We just like got the dogs in the house, went inside, and came out an hour later, and there was nothing to be found. Like she scooped them all up and just took them off.
She was fine.
Yeah, perfectly fine. She was just playing dead. You ever seen that Geico commercial? It's so funny. Where she's like, I was going to get the kids a dog, but we just decided to get them a possum.
I don't think I've seen
So
that.
funny.
No. We'll have to link that too.
Yeah, I don't have to watch that now.
It's a good one. Well, Joe, thanks for the information.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for taking the ride down.
Yeah, I didn't want to have bad audio with the other option, so.
Like Tyler?
Well, I've never done a podcast. I'm like, I don't know if I need anything. He's like, earbuds. I'm like, well, I guess I'll drive.
Oh, we appreciate it, and we'll make sure we get all your information. We'll tag it in the bottom of this podcast.
Great.
And we'll send you the story so you can share it when this
great.
goes live. This will go live next Monday.
All right, great.
And thank you for your service.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for your service, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
As always, guys, thanks for listening. You can find us on the web, themoderncraftsman.org. You can email us at info@themoderncraftsman.org. Wait. I know. We got the reviews coming. All right, listen. First off, let's get to I want to get right to the point. John's looking at reviews on Monday evening. He's like, "Hey guys,
because honestly, I looked at them.
You guys see the reviews?"
yet?
I'm like, "No, it's not Tuesday. Tuesday is when we look at the reviews."
I was getting excited about the good reviews.
Yeah, and then you had like
I read
a ton.
them, and I was like, "Oh my goodness."
So we have a handful, but the common theme was last week. John made a comment on the podcast that he could build anything. So I'm going to read one from...
and this week I said almost nothing, so there won't be any suck.
I know. I'm like, John's not talking because everyone was mean to him. So we have from last Wednesday, I love the podcast. It's hard to fully explain how helpful it's been. A true paradigm shift in myself and my business. It's encouraging me to be a better builder. I relate on so many topics that you all discuss, and it makes me feel like I'm not alone. Keep up the great work from Benjamin, Boyd's Custom Building. Then we have Defalozi, I think. Nick and Tyler are great, but John is on another level. That guy can literally build anything. And then we have LOL, bro. Been listening since the beginning, and these guys never disappoint. No reason not to listen to these guys talk about everything trades. I feel like I skipped one.
I'd only picked up the two.
Did someone delete a review? Did you delete the review?
No, I can't do that.
Well, there was definitely a second one that talked about how it said it basically said that John can build anything. I swear there was another one.
Sarcasm's heavy.
Did I miss
I don't know
it?
if there were. I only got to the one that John wanted us to see, and then I started laughing.
Oh, here it is. It's right here. KCCO NOLA. The podcast is great. There are 3 hosts. 2 of them are cool. Tyler is down to earth and has great talent. Nick is talented, thoughtful, and a good business leader. But John, he can build anything. And I mean, man, what a slightly above average guy to learn from. A guy who could build anything. So you designers out there, throw anything at him, he can do it.
And then you had one more about Clay above that.
I did see that.
Yeah, right.
All right, real quick. Not real quick, it's the longest one. Just wanted to drop you guys a note to say that I found your podcast about 6 months ago and I've listened to every episode, past and present. That being said, the episode with Clay Chapman was my absolute favorite so far. From the discussion of new urbanism, a movement that I'm a huge proponent of, we took our summer vacation to Seaside this year because I've always wanted to see it, to the technical discussion regarding his adaptation of a traditional building technique for the modern world was absolutely riveting. I'm not even kidding. What he's doing both with his business techniques and his land planning, his little pocket neighborhood, is so far from the norm of what we typically see. It is refreshing to see someone who is having success building a product that they are wildly atypical, but so good that he is able to create a market for something that people probably didn't even know they wanted. Great job to him, and great job to you guys for bringing him on. So as always, we appreciate the reviews. Those are on iTunes. Those are the ones we're pulling up each week. Make sure you pop on there, leave us a review. Please stop picking on John.
We're creeping on 600 reviews, which is cool.
Are we?
Yeah.
Pick on me. Don't tell me I'm metrosexual. I know that.
594. So we're hitting a milestone in a way.
You can pick on Tyler, I think.
Yeah, go for it.
Just leave John alone.
It all works.
Instagram, Modern Craftsman. And keep up those Modern Craftsman Monday shares.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people ask me what the Modern Craftsman email is, but if you just go onto Instagram, you can send an email straight through that. Like people are DMing me on Instagram asking me what the Modern Craftsman email is.
It's because they skip the outro every time. We got to hook them somehow.
Seriously.
Guys,
maybe
December
we'll put
12th.
the outro first.
Don't forget December 12th. Cape Cod Lumber will be in Randolph.
Sorry, I was just looking because we do have message or email on the profile.
Dang.
So it's super easy to be able to just hit email, and it goes right to all 3 of us.
Yep.
Later, guys.
Yeah.
Sorry, Cape Cod Lumber.
Sorry. Cape Cod Lumber.
Cape Cod Lumber,
12th.
December 12th, Randolph, Massachusetts. Lombardi's?
Yeah, make sure you register.
Oh, yeah, you got to register on Cape Cod Lumber. It's capecodlumber.com/
We'll also put it in our profile.
Expo.
Even if you just Google Cape Cod Lumber, like the expo, it'll come up.
Yeah.
A link to it will come up.
Yeah, we'll switch it up so it's in our profile for the Modern Craftsman IG.
Good idea.
Thanks for listening, guys.